Chapter 126. At this moment, D. Shirtian's voice was unprecedentedly cold and filled with a terrifying murderous intent. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the hole in the ground. This rat was too detestable. It had provoked him time and time again. If he did not kill it, it would not be able to appease the hatred in his heart. It might even become a huge problem in the future. The last time they met, it was still a demon. Now, it had become a demon. If it continued to become stronger, perhaps he would not be afraid. However, it was a huge threat to the people around him. This kind of threat could not be allowed to happen after his little sister returned. The sentence, "If you go to heaven, I will chase you to heaven. If you go to hell, I will chase you to hell," had completely expressed his firm determination to kill the Rat King. After roaring, his body suddenly moved and directly burrowed into the hole dug by the Rat King. After the Rat King became a demon, its size was not inferior to that of an adult tiger. The hole it dug was extremely large and could accommodate it. Now, D. Shirtian's body had shrunk to the size of an adult tiger. It was almost the same size as the Rat King. The hole could completely accommodate D. Shirtian's body. D. Shirtian followed the Rat King closely without hesitation and directly chased into the ground. He completely displayed his determination to not give up until he killed the Rat King. Squeak, squeak! The battle didn't last long. In the blink of an eye, the tide had turned. When the rats that were originally surrounding the area saw that their king had fled, they didn't dare to continue staying here. They all let out strange cries and turned around to rush back into the hole that they came out from. It was as if the sea had begun to ebb after the tide had risen by the shore. Millions of rats quickly retreated back into the ground at a speed that would leave anyone dumbfounded. In the blink of an eye, the originally densely packed group of rats actually inconceivably disappeared without a trace. The surroundings returned to its original tranquility in an instant. It was as if the strange scene from before had never happened. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, there would absolutely be no one who would believe that a large group of ferocious and terrifying rats had actually appeared here just now. "This, Little White, is that black tiger really your brother?" The young girl blinked her eyes in surprise and looked at the little white tiger. However, her eyes were as clear as usual. "Yes, it's my brother. I can't be wrong." The little white tiger nodded vigorously and said with certainty, "Big Brother and I were born together. How could I be wrong? Although Big Brother has become very big, his aura is still Big Brother's. It was very affectionate. Little White was very attached. I remember that when my mother was still alive, I liked to lean on my brother to sleep." As he spoke, a look of yearning and anticipation flashed in his eyes. He seemed to be reminiscing about the past. "Little White, it seems like your brother is very powerful. Now that you've found him, you won't have to be afraid of anyone bullying you anymore." The young girl looked at Xiao Bai and squatted down with a smile. She gently stroked Xiao Bai's head, and Xiao Bai squinted her eyes in enjoyment. "Sister Fei, when my brother comes back, can you be with Xiao Bai in the future?" "In the future, Xiao Bai will look for Big Brother to beat up those bad guys. If they dare to bully Mommy, we definitely won't let them off." Xiao Bai looked at the girl expectantly. "Your brother chased them underground. Will he be fine?" The young girl looked at the huge hole not far away. It was pitch black and looked very scary. It made one feel as if a monster would come out of the hole at any time. It was very frightening. Her worry was also reasonable. On the ground, the tiger was indeed the king of beasts. However, when it was underground, the king of beasts might not be able to show off its might. Furthermore, this was not a direct battle between ordinary beasts. It was a battle between powerful beasts at the level of demonic beasts. Such rats did not fear the king of beasts like ordinary beasts. They would turn around and bite you at any time. She could not help but worry that the black tiger would be at a disadvantage underground. "No, Big Brother will definitely defeat that stinky rat." The young girl was not confident, but Xiao Bai was very certain. Her eyes were filled with determination as she said, "Big Brother is the most amazing. Big Brother is the most powerful." She thought of the past. When they were still drinking milk by their mother's side, De Chertion was constantly training his body. He tempered his physical body and grew faster than anyone else. He stood at the top of the mountain and let out a tiger's roar. It could frighten the birds and beasts and make them run around in panic. He could do things that they could not do. At that time, she worshipped her brother greatly in her heart. At the thought of this, Xiao Bai turned her head and stared at the hole with her worshipful eyes, hoping that De Chertion would come out of the hole immediately. "Scoundrel, you can't escape. If you go to the sky, I will go to the sky. If you go to the ground, I will follow you. Let's see where you can run to today." As the young girl and the little white tiger were talking, an incredible scene appeared in front of them underground. A huge rat was digging desperately in front of them and escaping underground at lightning speed. Its expression was filled with panic and fear. It had to be said that rats were born experts at digging holes. The king of rats was even stronger. While digging holes, it did not affect its escape speed at all. It was very shocking. And behind it, a black tiger about the same size as the king of rats was chasing closely behind. The purple king pattern on the black tiger's forehead flickered intensely. Its two eyes were filled with arrogance and coldness. A cold, murderous intent surged out like a tide as it stared coldly at the figure in front of it that was escaping at lightning speed. However, while the black tiger was chasing, it did not seem to be in a hurry. It did not seem to be using all its strength to chase after the king of rats. Instead, it was very leisurely, which was very strange and strange. From time to time, it would spit out a few threatening words from its mouth. It looked like a cat catching a rat. Damn, it should be a tiger catching a rat now. Indra Tianhu's eyes flickered with a strange light. He thought to himself, "I've seen rats before, but I've never seen a rat with such an abnormal defensive power. Just its innate ability, short-sightedness, already has an extraordinarily terrifying strength. But I've never heard of a rat having such an innate talent in defensive power. Maybe this rat had some fortuitous encounter. Before killing him, I have to grasp this secret in my hand." Looking at the king of rats, he could be said to have several thoughts in his mind. If the king of rats' amazing defensive power was because he had a fortuitous encounter, but when he was in the Myriad Demon Valley, he noticed that almost all the rats at that time were glowing with a strange yellow light. Under this strange light, all the rats' defensive power was increased by 10 times, or even dozens of times. It could be seen that this item that could enhance one's defensive power was definitely not a one-time thing, but a treasure that could be reused and reused. If such a treasure was really taken out, it would definitely be a great treasure. Therefore, when he was chasing after the Rat King, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he was following behind at a speed that made the Rat King feel pressured. At every moment, the Rat King felt a sense of dread, as if a calamity was about to befall him. Under such stimulation, the panicked king of rats was very likely to be unable to think because of this. At this time, it would instinctively rush to the place that it thought was the safest in its heart, and that place was very likely to be the location of the hidden treasure. Even if things didn't go as he expected, he could still catch up to the Rat King at any time without suffering any losses. This little calculation would naturally not let the king of rats know. "Black Tiger King, how long are you going to chase this king?" "Stop chasing, this king admits defeat. As long as you let me go, this king will never provoke your Myriad Demon Valley in the future." The king of rats desperately dug forward and kept digging. From time to time, it would look back and see De Chertion chasing after it reluctantly. A deep fear constantly emerged in its heart, and it was so frightened that it kept begging for mercy. The king of rats' eyes could be said to be filled with horror. It never thought that De Chertion would be so desperate and even dare to chase underground. "Humph, admit defeat? It's too late. Even if you go to heaven or hell, I will take your life." Tion did not seem to be shaken. He was still the same as before, following closely behind. When the King of Rats heard this, it immediately knew that there was no possibility of reconciliation between it and Tion. Its heart hardened, and its eyes burst with a resolute look. It gritted its teeth and said to itself, "Fine, you forced me to do this. This king does not believe that you will dare to chase after me when I get there." It seemed to have made up its mind. Its body, which was originally straightforward, suddenly turned around and dug quickly to the side. It turned in a direction and dug hard underground. Its body was still quite fast. "There's a change." Tion saw this and could not help but have a flash of light. His spirit was lifted, and he became energetic, following closely behind the King of Rats. At this time, Rat King didn't speak and dug forward with all his might. Sakra, on the other hand, unhurriedly chased after him. For a moment one chased while the other escaped. They actually dug out an underground passage that was tens of thousands of meters long. However, as the King of Rats dug consciously, the surrounding scene became strange. No, it's really not normal. This soil seems to be very different from normal soil. It seems to be rock, but it is also somewhat different from normal rock. Tian's eyes suddenly became serious. As he chased after the King of Rats, he turned to look at the hole that was dug out. Only after looking at it did he discover the difference. Originally, when he was digging at the beginning, what he dug out was soft soil, and there was not much difference. But now what he dug out was not soil, but hard rocks. These rocks were not ordinary rocks. They were as hard as steel. On the walls of the cave, there were traces of strange energy emitting from them. It was very strange, and it was very similar to spiritual energy. The rocks were emitting a fluorescent green light, adding a layer of halo to the originally dark cave. It was as if this was a mineral vein. It was really strange. Moreover, the Rat King used its claws to dig out a tunnel in such a hard rock. This ability was truly admirable. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 127. This rat is really an expert at digging holes, to be able to dig out a tunnel in such a hard rock. However, this rock is definitely not an ordinary ore. It looks like a spirit stone, but it doesn't really look like one. Instead, it looks like some kind of material. Tion carefully observed the surrounding rock. He discovered that these rocks were abnormally hard and seemed to contain spiritual energy similar to that of a spirit stone. However, he was unable to absorb spiritual energy from these rocks and could only reject the possibility of them being spirit stones. Furthermore, these rocks were abnormally hard and emitted a greenish-yellow glow. If he was not wrong, this should be a good material for refining weapons. He was not in a hurry to catch up to the Rat King. Although he did not know what these strange rocks were, Tion still used his storage bag to store them. Perhaps they would be useful in the future. Gotcha! At this moment, the Rat King, who had been running forward with all his might, waved his claws and dug at the hard rock in front of him. Pieces of greenish-yellow rock flew backward at high speed. Suddenly, at the place where his claws landed, there was an abnormally crisp sound. The sound was very hollow, and a fist-sized hole appeared in front of him. "I've arrived." The Rat King was overjoyed. Its two rat claws danced like the wind and fire wheels, leaving behind countless afterimages as they landed on the mountain wall in front of it. That hard mountain rock was easily torn apart by its claws, as if it was tofu. As it dug, the scene in front of it became a little strange. After it dug out a part of the rock in front of it, its eyes suddenly opened up. What appeared in front of it was an incomparably vast space. There was not a single piece of rock in front of it. "Haha, Black Tiger King, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to kill me this time. I'll take my leave first." Rat King's eyes flickered with light as he cheered himself up. He let out an insolent laugh at Sakura, who was behind him. In the midst of the laughter, his huge body directly rushed forward. No one knew where he was escaping to, but he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Trying to escape, Deshirtian leaped forward. His aura soared to the sky. A ferocious pressure pressed forward like a tidal wave. He leaped to the place where the Rat King was originally standing. Just as he was about to chase after it, he saw the scene in front of him. His body, which was about to leap forward, suddenly froze on the spot. A look of disbelief and shock appeared in the eyes of the two tigers. Even though he believed that he had a firm mind, he was still dumbfounded. How is this possible? How could such a thing exist underground? It's unbelievable. Looking at the unbelievable scene in front of him, Sakura's mind was filled with indescribable shock. Even the matter of chasing after Rat King was thrown to the back of his mind at this moment. Why? The things in front of him had completely exceeded his imagination. In front of him was an incomparably huge underground world. The space could be said to be incomparably vast. It was impossible to see the end of it at a glance. It was as if this was a complete underground world, presenting the appearance of a small world. In this underground space, there was a thick layer of gray fog above. The fog did not disperse, and it brought about a deathly stillness and terrifying aura. This caused the atmosphere here to be terrifyingly oppressive. Before Sakura had even entered this space, he could already feel a terrifying aura filling every inch of space. Even if he was just a little closer, he would have a suffocating feeling that even his breathing wasn't smooth. He hadn't even gotten close, yet he could already have such a feeling. From this, it could be seen how mysterious and terrifying the thing before his eyes was. Speaking of which, the scenery in front of him was mostly shrouded in fog. Vaguely, he could see a huge ancient stone door in front of him. There seemed to be various mysterious talismans on the door, emitting an ancient aura. In the middle of the fog, there was a towering mysterious ancient tower. The ancient tower rose from the ground and was incomparably huge. The strange thing was that the fog could cover other sceneries, but there was no way to cover the ancient tower. Around the ancient tower, the fog could not get close at all. This also allowed Deshirtian to clearly look at the ancient tower. The ancient tower was full of mysterious and ancient aura. The tower was divided into 9 levels, one level after another. On the tower there were mysterious ancient talismans, densely covering it, as if they were some mysterious ancient characters. The color of the tower was chaotic. It was connected together and stood on the ground like an ancient savage beast, emitting a trace of boundless aura. Unpredictable! How could there be such a thing under the southern wilderness? Looking at the appearance of this ancient tower, it has definitely existed for unimaginable years. Is it a relic left from ancient times? Deshirtian looked at the scene in front of him for a long time. He was completely shocked by what he saw. This seemed to be an ancient relic. The aura emitted from the stone door and the ancient tower was almost the same as that of the mysterious ancient tomb in the Myriad Demon Valley. There was a kind of vicissitudes of time. Ancient, boundless. He guessed that there might be a great secret in this relic. Perhaps there were ancient secrets buried there. This place is too horrible. With my current cultivation, I can't set foot in it at all. If I go in rashly, I may die here. Everyone was curious, and Deshirtian was no exception. However, he keenly felt that there was an immeasurable horror hidden in this relic. There was a terrible danger that could be fatal. With his current strength as a demonic beast, not to mention getting close to the ancient tower, he might not even be able to open the stone door. Weak, too weak. In front of this relic that might be an ancient relic, a demonic beast was simply a weak existence. The slightest accident could take his life. His eyes flashed with a trace of fear. Deshirtian had always valued his life. Although he was very curious about the relic in front of him, he did not intend to risk his life to explore it. His eyes turned and landed on an obelisk not too far away from him. This obelisk was abnormally tall, like an ancient sword that stood tall on the ground. It seemed that Shao was very fierce. On the ancient tablet there were protruding words. Using his full power to look over, Sakura couldn't help but shake his head inwardly. The characters on the ancient monolith were really mysterious. They weren't any characters that he knew, nor were they ancient characters. They were ancient characters that he had never seen before. These ancient words were engraved on the ancient tablet, but they didn't appear rigid. Instead, they seemed to have a strange spirit, and every single one of them seemed to contain a tremendous amount of power. This is not a place that I can set foot in for now. Only in the future, when I become strong enough, will I be qualified to explore the secrets buried in this relic. Sakura decisively shook his head. He didn't lose his mind because of the sudden discovery of the ruins. He didn't rush into the ruins because he was very clear about his own weight. He quietly moved his eyes away from the ancient pagoda and looked in the direction where Rat King had left. He discovered that Rat King had already escaped without a trace. It seemed that the Rat King was very familiar with this place. From the beginning, it deliberately lured Di Shirtion here, hoping that Di Shirtion would not be able to detect it and enter the relic. That way, it could easily borrow the power of the relic to cause fatal damage to him. Smelly rat runs really fast? Di Shirtion snorted. A cold light flickered in his eyes. He said coldly, however, I have gained quite a lot from discovering this relic this time. Consider yourself lucky this time. It was impossible to let the Rat King go. However, the underground was very complicated now. Now that the Rat King had disappeared, it would be extremely difficult to find it again. There was no point in staying any longer. He turned around and walked into the tunnel that he came in from before. Then, he waved his claws and attacked the top of his head. Boom! The powerful attack cracked the soil and stones above on the spot and collapsed downward. In the blink of an eye, the road to the relic was blocked. Then, he rushed back along the original path without any hesitation. He already had a complete plan in mind for the group of rats underground. I don't know how my little sister is doing up there. This time, she chased after that mouse for such a long time, I hope nothing bad happened to her. Sakura was thinking about the little white tiger on the ground, so he didn't have the mood to continue staying underground. He followed the tunnel and ran out as fast as he could. There were all kinds of dangers in the southern wilderness. Given the little white tiger's ability, it would not be able to defend against any accidents at all. Although he had previously released the tiger's power to intimidate all directions, it was better to be safe than sorry for such things. At the thought of the little white tiger, Di Shirtion could not help but have a deep doubt in his heart. How did my sister escape? And why was that human girl with my sister? I remember that I saw with my own eyes that my sister and the other two were captured by immortal cultivators. No, I must ask clearly. Thinking in this way, all sorts of doubts caused him to be unable to help but arouse a trace of impatience in his heart. He had a premonition that perhaps his little sister's return this time would allow him to know exactly what happened after they were captured and where they were taken to. What happened to the white tiger mother and younger brother? A series of questions kept circling in his mind. What happened back then was a thorn in his heart, a thorn that was deeply stabbed in his heart. Every time he recalled it, a heart-wrenching pain kept surging. He would never forget the feeling of helplessness he felt when he saw them being taken away. It was also this incident that spurred him to constantly move forward. He did not want such a thing to happen before his eyes again. And there was only one way to put an end to such a thing. Get stronger, keep getting stronger and stronger. Sister Faye, why isn't my brother back yet? He's been gone for so long. Did something happen? On the surface, the little white tiger's eyes stared unblinkingly at the huge hole in the ground, hoping that the familiar figure would jump up from below. There was an unconcealable sense of uneasiness in his voice. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support legal reading. Chapter 128. Don't worry, little white. Didn't you say that your brother is the most powerful? That rat will definitely not be able to defeat your brother. Perhaps it will come out very soon. The young lady smiled as she squatted beside the little white tiger. She patted its little head and comforted it. Her eyes also looked towards the entrance of the cave from time to time. She didn't know why, but after seeing Sakra's domineering attack that slapped the Rat King to the ground, she also had an indescribable confidence in him. Although she said this to comfort Little White, she was also comforting herself. After meeting the Rat King and the rest in the southern wilderness, she completely understood that this place was different from the ordinary animals outside. They were all highly intelligent and would also encounter extreme danger and could lose their lives at any time. Shirtian's power made her feel a sense of security unknowingly. Little White. Just as the girl finished her sentence, she heard an obvious whistling sound from the cave. With a loud whoosh, a black figure jumped out from the ground instantly. At the same time, a strong gust of wind blew towards them with a suffocating aura. But when the little white tiger saw it, it widened its eyes and ran over happily. As it ran, it even shouted, "Brother, why were you gone for so long?" Little White thought that brother didn't want Little White anymore. As it said that, it came to Shirtian's side and leaned against his feet. Little White enjoyed the warm air that was emitted. "Ha ha!" Shirtian came out of the cave. When he saw Little White, the coldness and arrogance in his eyes all softened. He smiled at Little White and said gently, "You are my only family now. How can I not want you? If anyone dares to hurt you, I, Shirtian, will kill any demon or god that dares to block my way." The first sentence was unusually gentle, with a trace of warmth, but the second sentence was quite cold. Regardless of whether he had that kind of ability or not, the family around him had become his most important reverse scale. Once touched, it would definitely arouse his monstrous anger. Something that had already happened once, he would definitely not allow it to happen again. "Big brother, Xiaobai is so blessed." Xiaobai raised her head and looked at Shirtian, revealing traces of being touched. "Pa Tao!" At this time, a soft sound broke the warmth in an instant. Looking over, one could see that there was a broken withered branch under the girl's feet. Obviously, the sound just now came from above. "Big brother, Xiaobai will introduce you to my big sister. Big sister is very good to me. If it wasn't for big sister, Xiaobai wouldn't know when I would be able to see big brother." When Xiaobai saw the young lady, she hurriedly led Shirtian to the young lady and introduced, "Big brother, this is big sister Fei. Sister Fei, this is my brother Are." A tender voice sounded between the girl and Shirtian. Looking at the young girl in tattered clothes in front of him, a strange light flashed across Shirtian's tiger-like eyes. He could see that the holes in her clothes were all caused by various kinds of thorns. It was not difficult to guess that this was the result of traveling through the forest for a long time. The shoes on his feet were so broken that he could no longer wear them. Thinking of Xiaobai's words, the gaze he looked at the young lady became much gentler. He only hated those immortal cultivators. He could see at a glance that the young lady in front of him did not have any cultivation and was just an ordinary person. Moreover, she was willing to go through so much trouble to send Xiaobai here. This kind of favor, no matter where he put it, was heavy. The most peculiar thing was that he noticed that this young lady seemed to have a natural affinity with nature. It could be said that she was close to nature without limit. That kind of aura made even him feel very comfortable. A sense of disgust arose. This king is Xiaobai's biological brother. "You can call me Shirtian. My name is Fei. You are Xiaobai's brother, so you can call me Fei or Fei Fei." The young lady, Fei, blinked her eyes, looked up and down Shirtian a few times, and said clearly, Hearing this, Di Shirtian nodded slightly and said, "This time, you can send Xiaobai back. I, Di Shirtian, owe you a favor. In the future, if there is anything, as long as it doesn't go against my principles and doesn't directly take my life, I will do it for you even if it means going to the end of the world or going to the heavens or Huangquan." Promises, in Di Shirtian's heart, definitely had a special weight. All along, he had been following the principle that nothing could stand without trust. As long as he said something, he would definitely do it. It could be said that he was a person who kept his promises. Therefore, it was also because of this that he never made promises easily. Once he made a promise, it meant that it was a kind of great binding. And now, he had made a precious promise to this young girl called Zi Fei. However, the current Zi Fei did not know how precious this promise was. In the future, on the Zijin continent, a storm would sweep up because of Di Shirtian's promise. She did not take it too seriously. She showed a sincere smile on her face, shook her head and said, "Big brother Di, Zi Fei only accompanied Xiaobai to find you because she likes you. You don't have to take it too seriously." She looked like she was willing to accept the credit. This young lady was indeed different from ordinary people. Sakura secretly nodded in his heart, but he still said, "If you like Little White, then that's that. I'm Little White's elder brother. This time, you sent Little White back to my side. You deserve this favor. No matter if you accept it or not, I will never change my words." As he spoke, he changed the topic and looked at Xiaobai, saying, "Let's go, Xiaobai. I will take you to our new home in the future. Miss Zi Fei, come with us." After Di Shirtian finished speaking, he immediately walked forward and led the way to the location of the Myriad Demon Valley. "Sister Fei," Xiaobai called out and jumped into Zi Fei's arms. Then, it rubbed against her arms comfortably and blinked, saying, "Sister Fei, let's follow them." Zi Fei nodded and followed Di Shirtian with Xiaobai and Bai Hu in her arms. Di Shirtian also knew that Zi Fei was just an ordinary person, so he just walked slowly and did not walk too fast. Black Tiger's cultivation speed is really terrifying. A few months ago it was just a demon, but in the blink of an eye, when we met again, it had already transformed into a demonic beast. I have never seen such a cultivation speed from the beginning to the end. What is so special about this Di Shirtian? Along the way, Bai Hu glanced at Di Shirtian from time to time. If one looked carefully, one could see that Bai Hu's eyes were full of shock. It was as if she had seen the most incredible thing in the world. Others might not be aware of it, but she was the one who understood it the most. In less than a year, a tiger who had never had any foundation in cultivation had actually advanced by leaps and bounds. Spiritual beast, spiritual monster, and now demonic beast. Such a speed could be said to be terrifying. To a demonic beast, a year was not enough for ordinary birds and beasts to develop spiritual intelligence, for spiritual beasts to open up a single meridian, and for spiritual monsters to open up a demonic residence. It could not be any shorter. However, in this short period of time, the black tiger in front of her had managed to do something that was absolutely impossible. How could the white fox not be surprised? It seems that my vision was so high that even I was surprised. Bai Hu doubted in her heart. She thought to herself and lay in the arms of the girl. As usual, she did not say a word. "Brother, where are we going?" Xiaobai looked curiously at Di Shirtian in front of her. While looking around, she asked, "Sister Fei and I went to our original cave to look for you, but we couldn't find you. Why did you move here?" Indeed, she was very curious about this and did not understand why they had to leave Tiger Hill. "Little sister, there are many things that I will tell you later. You just need to know that no one will dare to bully you in the southern barbarian lands. When we reach the Myriad Demon Valley, you will be the princess of the Myriad Demon Valley, and I will be the king of the Myriad Demon Valley. From now on, I will always protect you. I will never let you be wronged again." His voice was very firm. From the moment he saw Xiaobai, he swore that he would never let her be in danger again. He would never allow his only family member by his side to be hurt in any way. Brother, what is the Myriad Demon Valley? The Myriad Demon Valley is the home that I have arranged for you. There you are the princess. Brother, Xiaobai also wants to become as strong as you. Brother, teach me. Along the way, Xiaobai saw that Di Shitian seemed to have endless things to say. One question after another came one after another, and Di Shitian's patience also became surprisingly good at this moment. He answered all the questions, and a doting aura emerged from his body. Zifei, on the other hand, opened her eyes and pricked up her ears, carefully listening to the conversation between the brother and sister. From time to time, Di Shitian would talk about some interesting things related to the southern barbarian lands. He also mentioned a little about the war in the southern barbarian lands. Even Bai Hu pricked up her ears and listened carefully. All the way forward, because Zifei was an ordinary person, Di Shitian deliberately slowed down. According to the current schedule, it would take a day or two to reach the Myriad Demon Valley. Anyway, he was not in a hurry, so he did not use the wind-controlling technique to lift them up. Flying with the wind, on the ground, they could also observe the surrounding scenery as they walked. In addition, the brother and sister were reunited, so they always had endless things to talk about. It was very warm. Although Di Shitian had a lot of questions in his heart, he did not ask at this time. After all, it was not very appropriate to ask outside. When they reached the Myriad Demon Valley, there would be plenty of opportunities to ask. Knowing the way, Di Shitian and the others had already arrived in front of the passage outside the Myriad Demon Valley by the afternoon of the second day. The towering mountain lay in front of them. It blocked their view and hid the things behind the mountain. Little sister, this is the Myriad Demon Valley. We are here. Di Shitian stopped and looked at Xiaobai softly. Howl! In the sky, a high-pitched eagle cry pierced the sky. Looking up, a huge eagle was constantly hovering in the air. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 129. On the bald eagle's head, there was a cluster of golden feathers, which was very obvious. As it hovered in the air, it revealed an extremely aggressive aura. Its eyes were as sharp as arrows. Looking down at the ground, when it saw Di Shitian, its eyes suddenly fell on the girl Zifei, and instantly became fierce. Howl! A high-pitched eagle cry came from its mouth, and its whole body suddenly swooped down. Its two vigorous eagle claws were suffused with a dark metallic luster, and it fiercely pounced on Zifei. Ah! When Zifei saw this, she couldn't help but let out a hurried cry of alarm, and a trace of panic flashed across her face. Under the eagle's claws, she could clearly feel that if it were to land on her head, a few bloody scars would appear on her head in an instant, and she would lose her life in an instant. Eagle Kong, stop! This is an important guest invited by this king. Don't be unreasonable. When Di Shitian saw this scene, two dignified gazes burst out from his eyes, exuding a strong majesty. He raised his claws, and the demon chi surged. In midair, a dark tiger claw was immediately condensed, and it quickly blocked in front of Ing Kong, colliding with the pair of eagle claws. On the spot, the power that erupted from the tiger claw blasted Ing Kong into the sky in one fell swoop. However, the tiger claw didn't contain too much power. The moment Ing Kong made his move, he was very clear that Ing Kong had misunderstood when he first saw him walking together with Zifei, a human, and thought that he was under the control of the other party, so he suddenly killed him. Miss Zifei, please don't be offended. This subordinate of mine is a little reckless and impulsive. When Di Shitian blasted Eagle Kong away, he turned his head to Zifei and nodded slightly, apologizing. No, nothing. Zifei's face was still a little shaken. King! Eagle Kong hovered in the sky for a while, rolling up a gust of wind, and landed. He lowered his head, with a kind of anxiety on his body. Obviously, he was also worried about being punished by Di Shirtian for what had just happened. Yes? Sakura looked at Zifei. He didn't want to stay on this matter any longer. He nodded and said, "Go back to the valley immediately and inform Susu and Chihua. Tell them to come out and meet my sister." His voice was filled with an unquestionable tone. It was the majestic aura of a superior. The king's sister? Hearing this, Inkong's eyes clearly paused. He slightly raised his head and carefully scanned the surroundings. His sharp eyes immediately fixed on Little White, who was in Zifei's arms. There was only Little White, a white tiger nearby. Clearly, if it was the king's sister, only Little White was most suitable. Immediately, there was a hint of respect in his eyes as he looked at Whitey. "Yes, your majesty." Inkong nodded, flapped his wings, and soared into the sky, rushing toward the myriad demon valley. "Let's go, we'll also enter the valley." Di Shirtian turned his head to look at Zifei, nodded, and led the way to the passage. However, when he walked into the cave, his eyes paused on Bai Hu in Zifei's arms. There seemed to be a faint, strange light in his eyes, with a slightly profound look. The cave had 9 bends and 18 bends. Walking in the cave, one fork after another was placed in front of them. However, Sakura was, after all, very familiar with the road. He walked forward with ease and familiarity. Zifei also followed closely behind him, and kept secretly sizing up the surrounding scenery. There was a look of curiosity in her eyes. "Miss Zifei, there is something I want to ask you. I don't know if you can answer me." While walking in the empty cave, Di Shirtian suddenly asked a very surprising question. His eyes suddenly lingered on Bai Hu in Zifei's arms several times. "Brother Di, what do you want to ask?" Zifei opened her eyes very curiously and looked at him. Obviously, she was a little confused and curious about Di Shirtian's sudden words. Di Shirtian said meaningfully, "I want to ask you, the Bai Hu in your arms, how did it come about? It seems to be very unusual." Quietly, no one noticed that when he asked this question, the muscles all over his body suddenly began to tighten, and there seemed to be a kind of hidden fear in his eyes. Of course, he hid this kind of expression very well, and the cave was very dark, so no one noticed it for a while. However, his gaze fell on the 2 snow-white tails behind Bai Hu, with a kind of indescribable color. Bai Hu has 2 tails. In his mind, a thought flashed quickly. Since his rebirth in his previous life, he was no stranger to the 4 great classical novels of Huaxia, and he had read the list of deifications several times. Among them, Daji had a very deep impression in his mind. He clearly remembered that Daji was a 9-tailed celestial fox. Therefore, when he saw the 2 snow-white tails behind Bai Hu, his heart could not help but beat wildly. "You mean the little fox?" Zifei blinked her clear eyes and said, "I met her in the forest. When I saw her, the little fox was very pitiful. I don't know why she fainted under the tree. Now that she has woken up, she has not spoken." Di Shirtian answered thoughtfully. However, he did not continue to ask. He just led the way in front of them. Even though the cave was long, it only took the time it took to brew a cup of tea to walk out of the cave. The sight before him suddenly opened up. A flat grassland, a dense forest, and a vertical waterfall. Surrounded by mountains on all sides, it was like a small world. There were mountains and water, and the fresh air rushed to their faces. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The moment they came out, they saw 5 tall figures standing in a row in front of them. The moment they saw Di Shirtian, they knelt down respectfully at the same time. Their voices were extremely loud and resounded in the valley. "Yes, this is this king's younger sister, Xiao Bai." Di Shirtian looked at the little white tiger. At the same time, Xiao Bai jumped out of Zifei's arms and came to Di Shirtian's side, looking at the 5 people in front of her curiously. "Greetings to Mississippi Chihua, Bai Yu, and the others greeted Xiao Bai respectfully. From now on, Xiao Bai is the princess of our myriad demon valley. Yes, greetings to Princess. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Bai's identity had been confirmed here. In the future, she would be the princess of the myriad demon valley. It was foreseeable that in the valley, no one would dare to disrespect her. The change of identity made Xiao Bai feel very helpless. She moved closer to Di Shirtian in fear and said in a low voice, "Brother, these are..." As she spoke, she looked at the 5 tall demons in front of her. She seemed a little timid. "Haha, Xiao Bai, these are my most loyal subordinate." As Di Shirtian spoke, he looked at Bai Susu and said, "Susu, come, I'll leave Xiao Bai to you first. You two get to know each other. Then, go to the valley and take a look around. Miss Zifei, you can also go with us." At this moment, his tone suddenly changed. He did not intend to bring Xiao Bai and the others to his cave abode immediately. Instead, he asked them to play in the valley first. Of course, there would be a twist later. As expected, after a pause, his tone changed again. He looked at Zifei and said, "Miss Zifei, I would like to talk to Bai Hu alone. Is that okay?" "Little fox?" Zifei was a little surprised. She looked at Di Shirtian in confusion. Di Shirtian's eyes were deep. He said, "Don't worry, Miss Zifei. I don't want to harm Bai Hu by asking her to stay. I just have some things to ask her. I promise that I won't do anything to harm Bai Hu for no reason." After he finished speaking, he did not look at Zifei but Bai Hu. "This okay?" Zifei hesitated for a moment, but after thinking about it, she did not refuse. She squatted down and gently put Bai Hu, who she had been carrying, on the ground. At this moment, Bai Hu's gaze was very strange. There was a faint sense of uneasiness in her eyes. Under such circumstances, Di Shirtian actually asked to be alone with her. This was definitely something she did not expect. Could it be that Di Shirtian has discovered my identity? But it shouldn't be. Although I am injured now, my aura has been completely restrained. Although he saw me last time at the Centipede Mountain, at that time, I showed my human body after transforming. I never showed my monster body in front of him. Why would he suddenly make such a request? Bai Hu had been silently observing Di Shirtian all the way down, and the surprise in her heart had never stopped. She had heard of the southern barbarian lands a long time ago. It was said among the demon clan that there were many ancient secrets buried in the southern barbarian lands. It was a place full of mysteries. Di Shirtian could survive in such a place and even find a place like the Myriad Demon Valley. She could not help but sigh indescribably. Di Shirtian had changed even more. In a short period of time, he had more of a unique aura than before. Although this aura was very faint now, it still did not escape her sharp senses. Zifei and Little White, led by Bai Susu and the others, walked into the valley. As they walked, they introduced the various things in the valley. In the same place, only Di Shirtian and Bai Hu were left standing face to face. They stared at each other. Bai Hu did not shrink back at all. Instead, she naturally sized him up. After a long while, in silence, Di Shirtian took a deep breath and said, "If I am not wrong, you should be the celestial fragrance fox king who saved my life at the Centipede Mountain." This sentence could be said to be earth-shattering and unusually direct. However, the tone in his words was rather certain. After he finished speaking, his eyes stared unblinkingly at the white fox. The white fox's body trembled slightly as the 2 snow-white fox-tails behind her gently danced. A strange light flashed in her eyes as she asked, "How did you guess it?" Her voice was gentle, and it gave off an extremely comfortable feeling when it entered the ears. However, the meaning of this sentence had undoubtedly already acknowledged her identity and affirmed Sakra's guess. After she finished speaking, a trace of curiosity flashed in Bai Hu's eyes. What kind of changes will Bai Hu's arrival bring to the protagonist? This is an important plot that has been planned in the outline long ago. If you are interested, you can guess. If you guess correctly, you will get a prize. In addition, thank you to all the brothers who have rewarded me, voted for me, and recommended me. Thank you for your support. Chapter 130. If I remember correctly, we've only met twice. The first time was at the Tiger Hill mountain range. I handed the Imperial Sky treasure box to you for safekeeping and gave you a bottle of spirit-gathering pills as a reward. When talking about the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, the gaze that the white fox looked at Sakura had a trace of profound charm. At the mention of the venerable Heavenly Treasure Box, Indra's heart trembled. This matter was a thorn in his heart. The venerable Heavenly Treasure Box was personally handed to him by the white fox, and she even promised to give him a bottle of spirit-gathering pills as a reward. Although back then, the white fox might have wanted to use him to conceal the existence of the venerable Heavenly Treasure Box, he couldn't deny that the venerable Heavenly Treasure Box was originally the white fox's private property. He had relied on the spirit-gathering pill to lay the foundation for his demonic cultivation. There was no doubt about it. It could be said that the white fox had an inseparable relationship with him, being able to walk the path of demonic cultivation to where he was today. He admitted that he was wrong to open the Imperial Sky treasure box without permission, but he didn't regret it. He wanted power. He needed great power, and the Imperial Sky treasure box might contain the power he wanted. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to open the Imperial Sky treasure box and obtained the most precious divine melody of 7 sins, which could make him even stronger. He didn't regret it. However, when he faced Bai Hu, he felt ashamed. He felt as if he owed her something. After all, he took something that belonged to someone else. This was also something that Di Shirtian wouldn't deny. That's right. At that time, I was still a weak tiger cub. Di Shirtian nodded seriously and didn't deny it. Bai Hu's gaze softened. She continued, "The second time we met was at the Centipede Mountain. You saved my life that time." Di Shirtian nodded. His gaze was firm. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. You saved my life. I owe you one. He agreed without hesitation. Kindness was kindness. Hatred was hatred. In every living thing, as long as they had wisdom, they would naturally have their own persistence. Distinguishing between gratitude and grudges had always been the most firm principle in his heart. In this matter, there was no reason to deny it. He knew very well that if it were not for Bai Hu's help on the Centipede Mountain, he probably would have died at the hands of that nascent soul-stage-old monster. What was even more tragic was that he might have been controlled by the beast-taming collar and enslaved by someone else. This debt was not small at all. I won't talk about the favor for now. However, I find it very strange. Logically speaking, the 2 times I appeared before you, I appeared in my human form. I have never revealed my true form. Why are you so sure that I am the heavenly fragrance Fox King? After Bai Hu finished speaking, she looked into Di Shirtian's eyes with great interest. She was extremely curious about this. Along the way, she had not spoken a single word and had stayed in Fei's embrace the entire time. She did not do anything out of the ordinary. However, she was recognized by Di Shirtian with a single glance. Even though she was already a famous demon king in the world of cultivators, she could not help but find it strange. She did not know where she had given herself away. The fragrance on your body is very unique, Di Shirtian muttered. Fragrance? When Bai Hu heard this, a look of understanding appeared in her eyes. When she came back to her senses, she thought to herself, how could I forget this? Indeed, she recalled that she was known as the Heavenly Fragrance Fox King in the demon race. The word fragrance was used to describe the unique fragrance she emitted. This fragrance was very unique. It was naturally emitted when she was born. Anyone who smelled this unique fragrance would not be able to forget it for the rest of their lives. This had almost become a unique symbol of her. Although she had turned into her original form this time, her fragrance came from nature. It was her body fragrance. Under normal circumstances, she would not deliberately conceal it. Now that she had turned into her original form and had not recovered from her injuries, she did not have the extra energy to deliberately conceal this unique body fragrance. Therefore, along the way, this kind of body fragrance was constantly being emitted in all directions. De Chertion had a deep impression of this fragrance. When he first met it at Tiger Hill, it had been deeply imprinted in his mind. Therefore, when he met Whitey earlier, he smelled this fragrance. However, because of the battle with the Rat King, he did not pay too much attention to it. When he came back and smelled it again, he became suspicious. When he arrived at the Myriad Demon Valley, he was almost certain that this who was definitely the heavenly fragrance Fox King that he had met twice. Of course, when he was almost certain, it was impossible to say that he did not struggle in his heart. After all, the relationship between them was not simple. That's right. I guessed it from the fragrance. After speaking, De Chertion did not hesitate anymore. He looked at Bai Hu with a trace of doubt in his eyes. He changed the topic and asked, however, if I remember correctly, you should be a demon king and have condensed a demon core. How could? Although he did not continue speaking, the meaning in his words was already very obvious. Humph, it's all because of you. When the white fox heard this, she swept a glance at Sakura and said with slight indignation, if it wasn't because I wanted to help you block that old cow-nosed Qingyun, I wouldn't have been entangled by him for an entire month. How would I have encountered those despicable old monsters and been besieged by them, causing me, a dignified demon king, to be heavily injured and return to my original body? It's all because of you that I ended up in this situation today. When De Chertion heard this, he was slightly stunned. He did not expect that Bai Hu's situation today, where she could only return to her original form, had something to do with him. It turned out that at that time, the white fox was curious about Sakura's astonishing cultivation speed and his wisdom that was far higher than that of ordinary demons. That was why she followed him along the way. And under that kind of scene on the Centipede Mountain, she didn't know what kind of mentality she had, or perhaps she didn't want such a weirdo to fall just like that, so she couldn't help but stop him. Of course, it was also because De Chertion carried the Imperial Sky treasure box with him. As soon as she did, Qin Yun's attention was completely focused on her. In an instant, he gave up on De Chertion and chased after them without hesitation. Originally, she thought that as long as she led Qin Yun away from them for a distance, she would chase him around in circles from a distance. When De Chertion's migration team was far away, she would then shake him off. But what she didn't expect was that although she had resolved the danger of Sakura, what happened after that was even more out of her expectations. Qin Yun actually had an extremely powerful flying magic treasure in her hands, the Azure Cloud Shuttle. Relying on the speed of this magic treasure, she chased closely behind, causing her initial thoughts to be instantly ruined. Later on, the chase continued for a month. Just think about it, one was a demon king, the other was a yuanying old monster. Once this chase started, how could their movements be hidden from the other experts? In the end, it was besieged by the three powerhouses on a mountain peak. After a fierce battle, the white fox could be said to have used all of its skills to forcefully withstand the heavy blows of the three powerhouses with the move Spirit Fox Leaves Its Cave. Although it managed to escape, its body was also severely injured. It was so injured that it could not even maintain its original form, so it reverted back to its original form. It could be seen how heavy the injuries she suffered at that time were. This was also why she fainted and fell to the ground when Zifei saw her. Therefore, the reason why Bai Hu was so seriously injured this time was not unrelated to De Chertion. Although Bai Hu did not say it clearly, from the look in her eyes, De Chertion secretly pondered in his mind. He recalled the last time he saw her and thought about her tone. He guessed that it was probably related to him. After thinking about it, he looked at Bai Hu and said, since Miss Bai Hu has come to my Myriad Demon Valley, you can recuperate here in peace in the future." As his voice fell, Di Shirtian looked at Bai Hu sincerely. This invitation was not blind. If the White Fox had been in the Myriad Demon Valley, Yi Futian would have been able to repay the favor. After all, the White Fox's injuries might have been related to him. Secondly, the White Fox was still an expert at the Demon King level. During this period of time, if he could get closer to her when she recovered, it might be of great benefit to the Myriad Demon Valley in the future. At least you still have some conscience. It was not in vain that I became like this because of you. Hearing this, Bai Hu could not help but feel happy. She thought to herself, if I can recuperate here, it will be an excellent place. Moreover, with Di Shirtian here, there should not be any danger. The spiritual qi is abundant. However, Bai Hu's eyes turned and she suddenly asked, "The Imperial Sky treasure box should still be in your hands, right?" There was an unusually cautious tone in her voice. Faintly, there was a trace of nervousness. Previously, she already knew that Di Shirtian had been cracking the Imperial Sky treasure box. She did not know whether the Imperial Sky treasure box had been cracked until now. Yes. Di Shirtian did not hide this matter. He nodded and said with certainty without hesitation, "The Imperial Sky treasure box is still with me. If you want, I can return to the cave residence and give it to you now." "No need. I'll keep it with you for the time being." Surprisingly, Bai Hu did not immediately ask for it back. Instead, she continued to leave the Imperial Sky treasure box in Di Shirtian's hands. After she finished speaking, she paused and continued, "However, I want to recuperate and cultivate in the valley. I need a quieter cave residence." Di Shirtian nodded slightly and had no objection to this. "Brother." At this moment, a tender voice sounded from not far away. Looking in the direction of the voice, they saw Little White Tiger running towards them quickly, followed by Chihua and the rest. "Brother, the valley is so big. Is this really our home in the future?" Little White returned to Di Shirtian's side, blinking its eyes and asking innocently. "Yes, the Myriad Demon Valley will be your home in the future. Let's go. Brother will bring you to a place to live." Di Shirtian's gaze softened instantly. After he finished speaking, he led the way in front and walked towards his cave residence. Chihua and the rest followed closely behind. "From now on, I'll adjust the time for future updates to be before midnight. I can't stay up too late anymore." To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 131. The reunion with Little White immediately made the Myriad Demon Valley livelier. Bai Hu and Zifei were both newcomers. Each of them was not ordinary. In order to settle them down, Di Shirtian asked Chihua and the others to open 2 caves around his cave. One was prepared for Bai Hu, and the other was prepared for Little White and Zifei. Because Little White did not want to be separated from Zifei, the two of them lived together. Of course, on the way, when Zifei and the others heard Bai Hu speak, they could not help but be surprised. They were not surprised that Bai Hu could speak, but that Di Shirtian could actually make Bai Hu speak. Bai Hu, who urgently wanted to recover her cultivation, immediately entered the cave after the cave was opened. She sealed the cave and entered seclusion. She wanted to recover her injuries to a better state in a short period of time. At this time, only Di Shirtian and Little White were in the cave. Outside, the sky gradually darkened. Bits of moonlight fell from the skylight and shone into the cave, bringing a lot of light to the dark cave. "Little White, weren't you captured by those immortal cultivators? What happened after you were captured? Why did you escape alone this time? Also, how are mother and second brother now?" Now that there was only the two of them, Di Shirtian did not beat around the bush and directly asked Little White all kinds of questions that had long existed in his heart. When talking about immortal cultivators, waves of cold light burst out from his eyes. To be honest, what he wanted to know the most now was which immortal sect had captured Little White and the others. He secretly swore in his heart, no matter who this immortal sect is, as long as they know I, D. Shirtion, will destroy them in the future. At this time, the dense hatred and arrogance were completely revealed. Big brother! When Little White heard this, crystal-clear tears fell from her eyes. She looked at D. Shirtion anxiously and said, Big brother, quickly go and save mother and second brother. Those bad people said that they would raise us into spirit beasts and sell us to other bad people. This is bad. Big brother, you must save mother and second brother. Little White sobbed and told the story intermittently. However, D. Shirtion listened carefully and basically understood what she was trying to say. The more he listened, the colder and sharper the light in his two tiger eyes. Strong hatred filled his eyes. So it's the Thousand Beasts sect. D. Shirtion said word by word, as if the words were squeezed out between his teeth. The purple king mark on his forehead emitted a bright purple flame, which was breathtaking. Monstrous anger crazily surged from his body. It turned out that the two immortal cultivators were disciples of the Thousand Beasts sect, which was extremely powerful in the immortal cultivation world. The Thousand Beasts sect had the word beast in its name. The sect was famous for controlling spirit beasts. The sect's spiritual treasure was a terrifying magic treasure called the Thousand Beasts Banner. Legends said that this banner contained the essence of 10,000 beasts. Once it was controlled, it could summon the essence of 10,000 beasts to fight against the enemy. These essences, at the lowest level, were at the demonic beast level. If the power of this banner could be completely unleashed, it would have a terrifying power that could shock ghosts and gods. However, how much power could be unleashed was naturally determined by the user's own cultivation. It was definitely not something that an ordinary person could control. As for Little White and the others, they were captured by two disciples of the Thousand Beasts sect and were fed a kind of elixir called the Spirit Beast Pill every day. This kind of Spirit Beast Pill was very strange. After eating it, it had the effect of increasing one's spiritual intelligence and spirituality. However, there was an extremely terrifying side effect. That was, once consumed, the spirit beast would not be able to transform for the rest of its life and would only be able to maintain its original form, which was the appearance of a wild beast. Moreover, while consuming the spirit beast pill, there would be a cultivator at the side continuously chanting a strange incantation. After listening to it, the spirit beast would be in a daze and become drowsy. It was extremely strange. This incantation was called the Spirit Governing Incantation. It was the foundation of the Thousand Beasts sect. It could be said that it was extremely important. After being cleansed by this Spirit Governing Incantation every day, Little White realized that the White Tiger Mother had actually started to become rather irritable. She often did not recognize her second brother and her. This situation made Little White rather afraid. After eating the Spirit Beast Pill, her intelligence and spirituality increased greatly. She also thought that if they continued to wait, they might become like the White Tiger Mother when they grew up. Therefore, the little White Tiger actually took advantage of the sudden change in the Thousand Beasts sect and sounded the alarm to escape to the foot of the Thousand Beasts mountain with unbelievable luck. It also coincidentally met Zifei, which was why it was able to come all the way to D. Shirtion. It could be said that there was too much luck involved in this. Otherwise, Little White would not have been able to find this place at all. The Thousand Beasts sect? I still advise you not to easily find trouble with the Thousand Beasts sect. Otherwise, with your current ability, you will only cause another demonic beast to appear on the Thousand Beasts mountain. The Thousand Beasts mountain is so terrifying that even I did not dare to go there in my heyday, unless, just as D. Shirtion was filled with anger and was about to explode, a gentle voice suddenly interrupted. Looking over, they saw a Snow White by who walking towards them step by step outside the cave abode. Two snow-white tails danced gently behind her and a unique fragrance assaulted their noses. Who else could it be but the heavenly fragrance Fox King? By who was originally in the cave abode next door when she suddenly sensed a torrential anger surging into the sky and alarmed her, which was why she appeared here. Taking a deep breath and smelling that strange fragrance, De Chertien's originally raging heart suddenly calmed down. It was as if this fragrance had a special effect of calming the mind and actually slowly calmed his emotions. Unless what? De Chertien looked at Bai Hu with a torch-like gaze. He knew that there was definitely more to her words. Bai Hu calmly walked in front of him and glanced at him indifferently. She said, "Unless you can cultivate to become a great demon and have the ability to move unhindered in the purple gold mainland, then you can possibly go up the 1,000 Beasts mountain. Otherwise, with your current demonic beast ability, not to mention you, even if there were 100 more of you, it would definitely not end well. If you want to go, you must at least have the ability of a demon king. If you can reach the peak of a demon king, you may be able to achieve your goal. Spiritual beast, demon king, demon king, demon king, great demon." Step by step, there was an incomparably huge gap between each level, and with every step forward, it would be 10 times or even 100 times stronger than before. For a normal demon, if a spiritual beast wanted to become a demon, it would take at least 1 to 2,000 years. And to become a demon king, it was even more difficult to estimate. It would take at least another 1 to 2,000 years. As for a great demon, without talent, even if you had a long time, you would only be able to reach the demon king level. De Chertien also knew a little about this from the inheritance, but he was not clear about the details. However, this did not stop him from making all sorts of guesses. Hearing Bai Hu's words, he could not help but be stunned. Immediately, a strong desire burst forth from his eyes. A desire to become stronger continuously surged. Admitting defeat was definitely not in his character. No matter how difficult the future was, it would not be able to stop his belief. "I want to know the situation of the 1,000 Beasts sect." De Chertien stared at Bai Hu's eyes like torches. For some reason, when Bai Hu saw this kind of gaze, her eyes unconsciously moved away a little. She said, "The 1,000 Beasts sect is not something you can understand now. The more you know, the worse it will be for you. In short, with your current strength, even if you add the entire Demon Valley, or even the Southern Barbarian, to the 1,000 Beasts sect, it will be a piece of cake. It can be easily destroyed. In my opinion, it's best for you to work hard and improve your own cultivation. With your talent, it's not difficult to cultivate to the Demon King level." As she said that, she also thought so in her heart. With his talent, it actually took him less than a year to break the norm from a spiritual beast to a demonic beast. If he was a demonic beast, how long would it take to condense an inner core and really become a demon? To be honest, she was really a little curious about this. After De Chertien heard this, the light in his eyes kept flickering. Suddenly, he looked at Bai Hu with a determined gaze and asked, "Do you know how to play the zither? Zither skills?" This unexpected question caused the white fox to have a trace of doubt in its heart. "Yes, I want to learn how to play the zither." In Sakra's tone, there was a kind of unwavering belief. "Zither, learn the zither." Other demons might really need time to hone their own cultivation. Perhaps thousands of years, perhaps tens of thousands of years, they would be able to reach the legendary Great Demon, possessing the power to overturn rivers and seas. But he could not wait. According to what Xiao Bai said about the 1,000 Beasts sect, he did not know what would happen to White Tiger Mother and the others if he delayed for decades or centuries. What kind of terrible experience would they suffer? Moreover, he had the capital that other demons did not have, the 7 Sins divine melody. Using the 7 emotions as the music, he could make heaven and earth weep and all living things grieve. He believed that if the 7 Sins divine melody really had the magical power described in the ancient scroll, He was confident that he could use it to fight against the Thousand Beasts sect. But now, the only obstacle in front of him was the zither. As long as he learned how to play the zither, he would be able to lay the foundation to play the Seven Sins divine melody. He must learn how to play the zither. I don't know how to play the zither. Bai Hu was slightly stunned, but still shook her head. She was a demon king, and usually spent most of her time cultivating. How could she have the time to learn how to play the zither? This was a relatively normal thing. If you want to learn how to play the zither, you can only learn it on the mainland. It should not be difficult to learn in the secular human world. The white fox asked curiously, if I still had my cultivation, it wouldn't be difficult for me to help you capture a zither player with superb skills, even if I were to go to a nearby town. However, I can't do that now. In her opinion, she could just directly find a zither player. It would not be troublesome at all. Unfortunately, it was quite troublesome now. Of course, if you can tell me why you want to learn how to play the zither, I might be able to help you. A look of interest flashed across the white fox's eyes. While it had given up on hope, it had given up on hope. I'm slowly adjusting. All the updates will be placed before 12 p.m. When I'm done adjusting, I'll fulfill my previous promise. Hee, I don't want to be a night owl. It's too tiring to stay up all night. Chapter 132. From Bai Hu's words, it seemed like there was a way to help. However, it also revealed that she was curious as to why Di Shirtian suddenly wanted to learn the Guqin. You really have a way? Sakra's pupils suddenly contracted. After knowing the news of White Tiger Mother and the others, and knowing how powerful the Thousand Beasts sect was, his desire to become stronger emerged once again. Moreover, it was even more intense than before. The only method that could allow him to possess such shocking power was undoubtedly the Seven Sin divine melody. Plus, before he knew how to play the Seven Sins demonic Guqin, his rough movements were comparable to those of a completion-level cultivator. If he learned how to play the Guqin and played a complete song, what kind of scene would that be? He was confident that with this song, he would be able to defeat the Wan Shou sect. Do you really have a way? Di Shirtian muttered to himself for a moment. After carefully observing her for a moment, he asked. Bai Hu blinked and said, You can choose not to believe me. However, I think that with your current level of cultivation, to reach the peak of a demonic beast and condense an inner core is not something you can do in a short amount of time. If you want to wait for yourself to transform, I'm afraid it will take a long time. I am just curious as to why you want to learn the Guqin. Indeed, Sakra himself was also very clear that if he wanted to wait for the transformation, it was definitely not something that could be done in 1 or 2 months. Even if he had already absorbed the bodies of thousands of cultivators in his own demon mansion, as long as he completely refined them, it would not be too difficult for him to truly reach the peak of a demon beast and even condense an inner core. However, if he was in a hurry to learn the Guqin, he could not wait for a year or 2. Di Shirtian took a deep breath and said, Actually, it's nothing. It's just that my natal instrument is a jade Guqin. The power of the jade Guqin can only be fully unleashed if I know how to play music. As he spoke, his mind flickered. A sparkling and translucent white light burst out from his body and landed in front of him. Through the gentle jade light, one could see a jade-colored 9-string zither placed in front of him. On the body of the zither there was a mysterious color. The jade light that it emitted carried a trace of demonic aura. It gave people the urge to rush forward and embrace her as soon as they saw her. Ding-dong! Ding-dong! The 9 strings naturally gave off a clear and melodious sound that reverberated in the cave. When one heard the sound of the zither, it was as if the various desires in one's heart were magnified many times over. Strands of black gas appeared from the surroundings and flowed into the zither along with the sound of the zither. It was extremely mysterious. You actually have a natal demon artifact, and it's even a jade zither. This zither, almost as soon as Di Shirtian opened his mouth, by whose eyes were filled with surprise. A natal demon weapon was also a natal immortal weapon. For the same reason, as long as you had the materials, anyone could refine it. However, there were not many in the demon clan who knew how to refine it. Moreover, it was even more difficult to collect the materials. Generally, the demon clan who had not transformed would not refine such a natal demon weapon. Even for her, she only had one set. Di Shirtian could actually refine it when he was still a demon beast. She could not help but be surprised. Moreover, when the Seven Sins demonic zither came out, she realized that this zither was definitely not ordinary. It could absorb the black gas on its own. From the black gas, she had a very evil feeling. Naturally, there was a kind of fear. Moreover, when the sound of the zither was heard, she felt that her emotions actually fluctuated more violently. If it were not for her profound cultivation, she was afraid that it would have caused some bad situations. In general, almost in an instant, she was sure that this jade zither was definitely not an ordinary demon artifact. Seeing the body of the jade zither, by whose gaze suddenly froze, her heart was instantly filled with surprise, and wild waves surged in her heart. The body of the zither was actually made from the piece of jade embryo left behind after being struck by the lightning of the heavenly tribulation. Back then, when Di Shirtian obtained this piece of jade embryo, she was a person who witnessed it with her own eyes. Naturally, she was very clear that a jade embryo that could withstand the lightning without being damaged was definitely not an ordinary item. Back then, she did not seize it immediately because she felt that the power originally contained in the jade embryo seemed to have been destroyed by the heavenly tribulation and had lost its spirituality. At best, it was a piece of peerless jade in the secular world. However, she did not expect that Di Shirtian would use this piece of jade embryo as a material to refine the body of the jade zither. In the jade zither, she could faintly feel a kind of demonic aura reverberating inside. Obviously, even if the spirituality in the jade embryo was completely lost, it was still definitely an excellent material to refine a demonic zither. With Baihu's insight, it was naturally impossible for her not to see that the quality of the jade zither in front of her was already a top-grade magic artifact. It was only because of the owner's cultivation that it could not be promoted. Its power was not the slightest bit inferior to any magic treasure. Using the shape of the jade embryo to refine a zither was the most suitable. Moreover, she also felt a kind of extremely strange power in the zither. This kind of power was something that she had never come into contact with before. Di Shirtian's body is really full of mysteries, Baihu secretly muttered in her heart. Looking at Di Shirtian, she said, "So your natal demonic artifact is actually a zither. To use a zither as a tool, you indeed need to understand music and the art of the zither to be able to completely unleash the power of the zither itself." As she said that, she paused, then continued, "I really don't know how to play the zither. However, to learn the zither, the best magic treasure is to enter the human world to learn." Di Shirtian's eyes narrowed slightly. "With your current appearance, it will be very difficult for you to enter the human world." Baihu said unhurriedly, "Of course, as I said before, as long as you tell me the reason, I will help you solve this problem." Her expression showed that she had a card up her sleeve, as if she really had the confidence to solve this problem. "How do you solve it?" Di Shirtian naturally followed up with a question. Baihu blinked, and a strange light appeared in her eyes. She said, "My Fox clan has a secret technique called the Mystic Moon Shapeshifting Technique. As long as you cultivate it, you can use this secret technique to transform into a human form even if you have not formed an inner core. Although you cannot always maintain your human form, it is enough to integrate into the human world." That's right. What Baihu said could be said to be a secret technique of the Fox clan. It was very unique, and had always been kept very strictly and had never been passed on to outsiders. For example, in the legend of the Fox clan, intelligent foxes were called fox immortals by humans. This was because most foxes admired those scholars among humans, and fell in love with these scholars. It was very poignant and beautiful. Many stories were widely circulated. It brought many poignant and beautiful legends to the human world. In fact, most of the foxes who fell in love with the scholars were not those who had formed an inner core with their cultivation. None of them had truly transformed into demons. Indeed, once the Fox clan could transform into demons, their minds would have become steady, and it would not be easy to move them and shake their belief. Take Bai Hu for example. If a weak scholar appeared in front of her, she would probably turn her nose up at him, and would not even take a few glances. In Bai Hu's heart, she had long determined that if one wanted to become her husband, he would at least have to be stronger than her. Only the strong had the possibility of attracting her heart and mind. Only the strong could subdue her and provide her with a pair of strong shoulders. Otherwise, the possibility of moving her heart was really too little. As for those fox immortals who left legends in the human world, needless to say, were naturally those little foxes who had specially cultivated the mystic moon shape-shifting technique. Their minds were not mature yet, and they were curious about the outside world. With the magic of the secret technique, they could transform into human form and enter the human world, leaving behind all kinds of poignant and beautiful legends. However, their fates were all quite tragic. After all, although the secret technique was magical, it could not increase their cultivation. Each of them had not even formed an inner core. If they entered the outside world like this, one could imagine their fate. However, this could not deny the magic of the mystic moon shape-shifting technique. It was definitely a shocking secret technique. Bai Hu was almost the strongest in the Fox clan, so how could she not know this secret technique? Moreover, the mystic moon shape-shifting technique had the same magical effect on the other demon clans. Regardless of whether it was a bird or a beast, as long as they cultivated, they could transform into human form and enter the human world without waiting to form an inner core. Therefore, if Di Shirtian also cultivated this secret technique, he could also transform into human form in advance. Mystic moon shape-shifting technique? The light in Di Shirtian's eyes suddenly became blazing. He stared at Bai Hu without blinking and said, "Can this secret technique really let me transform in advance? Won't my identity be discovered when I enter the human world?" He originally thought that he would have to wait until he formed an inner core before he could transform. Now that there was such an accident, he could not help but be concerned. What he lacked most was time. Otherwise, he would not care much about whether he transformed earlier or later. He would not think that as long as he transformed and had the appearance of a human, he would be a human. In terms of identity, he had a very clear understanding. A demon was a demon. He would not stop being a demon just because he transformed and had the appearance of a human. Although he was a human in his previous life, he did not feel that there was anything wrong with being a demon in this life. Furthermore, demons were born before humans. Demons would only live longer than humans. Transforming into human form was just a body that was more suitable for cultivation. That's right. As long as you cultivate the secret technique of the Fox clan, you can transform in advance. However, when they were confirming, Bai Hu suddenly said a turning point. Usually after, however, there would be a complete transformation. As expected, after a pause, she continued, "After all, the mystic moon shape-shifting technique is not the true transformation of the inner core. After going through the baptism of the transformation heavenly tribulation, there is a flaw in the transformation heavenly tribulation. There is a taboo in the transformation heavenly tribulation. One cannot always maintain a human form." When Di Shirtian heard this, he did not find it strange. If a mere transformation secret technique could completely transform, then the demon clan in the world would not need to go through the heavenly tribulation. In the world, it was impossible for such a heaven-defying thing to exist. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 133. What's the taboo? D. Shirtian's eyes flickered quickly, and he asked in a deep voice. By who did not hide? She nodded and said, the dark moon shape refining technique relies on the power of the mysterious yin in the sun and moon. Therefore, every time the moon is full, the power of the dark moon shape refining technique will automatically dissipate, and it can no longer maintain the shape. It will return to its original form at the first moment. Secondly, it's taboo to use the peach wood. If it's 1,000-year-old peach wood, once it touches it, its shape will also collapse. Thirdly, by who counted them one by one. There were still quite a lot of taboos. It could be seen that it was not a regular transformation tribulation to condense an inner elixir. If one wanted to transform, it would be the sky-stealing technique. After all, there would be various restrictions. Only when one really passed the transformation tribulation could he truly transform between the original form and the human body. However, when D. Shirtian heard these, he didn't feel that it was too big of a problem. He went to the human world just to learn the zither. He did not need other things. At most, he would immediately return to the southern barbarian lands after learning it. The most important thing is that once you use the dark moon shape refining technique to transform into a human body, it will be difficult to hide your demon aura. Ordinary people may not feel it, but for cultivators with a little common sense, they will find out that you are a demon. So, do you still want to learn it? After Baihu finished, she did not say anything more. She quietly stared at his eyes, waiting for his answer. Yes, why not? D. Shirtian said resolutely without hesitation. As long as he could learn the zither, nothing else mattered. The seven sins divine melody was a treasure, and the zither was the key to open the treasure. Naturally, the sooner he got the key, the more relieved he would be, and the sooner he could familiarize himself with playing the melody. When Baihu heard it, a faint smile appeared in her eyes. She suddenly said, You want to learn it, but the dark moon shape refining technique is the supreme secret skill of my fox tribe. Why should I teach it to you? You have to know that even in my clan, not everyone has the opportunity to obtain this secret technique. Give me a reason. After saying that, he sized up Sakra's body with great interest, appearing to be very interested. Indeed, this secret technique was an extremely useful secret technique to the Fox clan, or rather, to the entire Yao clan. Even in the Fox clan, not everyone knew it. Teaching it to an outsider was indeed a problem that could not be avoided. D. Shirtian's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak immediately. Xiao Bai had been listening attentively from the side. He was sensible and did not interrupt. Now that things had come to this, he could not help but look at Baihu with a pleading gaze. He said immaturely, Sister Baihu, please help my brother. Little White, say no more. D. Shirtian interrupted Little White's pleading and raised his head to look at Baihu with a stern look. As long as you're willing to teach me, I can promise to do one thing for you in the future. As long as it doesn't go against my principles, I won't hesitate even if I have to go through fire and water. His tone was very cautious. Promises were not made lightly, and promises had to be kept. To him, a promise was definitely a very important price to pay. Therefore, there was an extremely solemn aura in his expression. Okay. Just a promise. Unexpectedly, the white fox easily agreed. Looking at its appearance, it seemed that it was waiting for Sakra to open his mouth to say this sentence. After he finished speaking, a meaningful smile appeared in his eyes. There seemed to be an indescribable playfulness vaguely. Without much nonsense, after agreeing, the white fox immediately told him the cultivation method of the mystic moon refining technique. Hearing this, Indra had the foundation of cultivation, and on the path of demon cultivation, he could be considered to have officially embarked on the journey. In the White Fox's narration, he also slowly understood the mystery contained in this secret technique. It turned out that the mystic moon shapeshifting technique was to use the mystic power of the moon to inject it into one's entire body through a special method so that one could transform into a human form. Moreover, this process required 9 days. 9 was the number of extremes. During these 9 days, one had to bathe in the moonlight and be baptized. It was magical. After teaching, Baihu glanced at Deshirtion and said, "Remember, you owe me a promise." After saying that, she turned around and walked out of the cave residence. She was not worried at all that he would not fulfill his promise. This was also her understanding of Deshirtion's nature. The observation when she was in the Tiger Hill Mountains was not in vain. It could be said that she had witnessed Deshirtion's growth and had a general understanding of his temperament. In addition, after a period of observation after meeting him this time, she had long determined that he was definitely a demon who kept his promises. Therefore, she was not worried that he would not fulfill his promise. She left the cave with peace of mind and returned to her own cave residence. "Xiaobai, although you are now back with me, in the Myriad Demon Valley, you are the princess here and no one will bully you. However, you can't always be under my protection. I can't always be with you and protect you. Therefore, I plan to teach you the tiger roaring technique, the demon cultivation method of my tiger tribe." Deshirtion watched Baihu leave. He did not immediately practice the mystic moon shape-shifting technique given by Baihu. Instead, he said to Xiaobai with a slightly serious tone, "As long as you work hard to practice in the future, you will also have great power." Xiaobai was his sister. Naturally, it was a matter of course to protect her. Deshirtion himself also enjoyed the feeling of being able to care for his family as a brother. However, he did not always protect Xiaobai forever. In this world, there were too many experts. In the southern barbarian lands, he could protect Little White. But in the future, if he was not by her side, who would protect Little White? The only strength was her own strength. This was a strength that no one could deprive her of. Moreover, if he did not cultivate, his life would only be a few decades or 100 years. He did not want to be separated from his family because of this. This decision had already appeared in his mind as soon as he saw Xiaobai. Xiaobai blinked and asked seriously, "If I cultivate, can I go with you to save Mom and second brother in the future?" "Of course." Deshirtion nodded without hesitation and said, "As long as you can become stronger in the future, I will take you with me. Otherwise, you will wait for me in the valley." Xiaobai wants to cultivate. Brother, quickly teach Xiaobai how to cultivate. Xiaobai's eyes lit up as she cried out excitedly. Deshirtion looked at Xiaobai with gentle eyes. Without hesitation, he explained the tiger roar technique to Xiaobai. The tiger roar technique was the only technique he had inherited from his bloodline. It could be said that it was the most suitable technique for tigers to cultivate. It was the best technique for laying the foundation. With the experience of cultivation, one's understanding of the technique would be deeper. Although the explanation was short, it was quite practical. To the point. He also used his demon essence to help Xiaobai open the first meridian in her body, wash her muscles and refine her marrow, and lay the foundation for her cultivation. He also took out various pills obtained from cultivators, such as the yellow bud pill, the marrow cleansing pill, the qi nourishing pill, and so on. All kinds of low-level pills that could be taken at the qi refinement stage. The medicinal properties of these pills were far inferior to the spirit-gathering pill that Baihu had given him. However, for Xiaobai who had just started cultivating, it was still very beneficial. It could increase the speed of her cultivation. He also took out the monkey spirit wine that he had always kept with him. This was a spirit wine that was even better than the spirit-gathering pill for cultivation. All kinds of resources were given to Xiaobai regardless of the cost. She was his only sister. How could Di Shutian be stingy with her? He couldn't wait to give all the good things to Xiaobai. Of course, after knowing that Bai Hu was injured, he also gave her 3 bottles of monkey spirit wine. With the power of the spirit wine, it had an extraordinary ability to heal injuries. Di Shutian, who was eager to learn the art of the zither, did not hesitate. On the second night, he began to absorb the mysterious Yin energy according to the mystic moon refining technique. He hoped that he could successfully transform 9 days later. Pa! In Lingnan City, Li Ji, the head of the Li family, placed his left hand on the armrest of the chair beside him and turned it into a claw. His hand pulled a piece of iron wood from the chair. He gritted his teeth as if he was going to break them. His face was very ugly, as pale as a sheet of white paper. In the hall, a few members of the Li family, who were also pale, were also sitting with ugly expressions. However, the fear in their eyes, as if the sky was falling, could be clearly seen. Li Ji looked around, took a deep breath, and finally spat out a sentence. Everyone, the Ancestor's soul tablet is broken. This sentence was like the collapse of the sky. The entire hall was filled with an incomparably oppressive aura. Soul tablet. This was an immortal cultivator who fused a strand of his divine sense into a unique jade tablet, turning it into a unique soul tablet. If the soul tablet was in good condition, it meant that the immortal cultivator was safe. If it was in good condition, it meant that the immortal cultivator was very safe. But if it was suddenly broken, it meant that the owner of the soul tablet had died unexpectedly. Now, the soul tablet of the Li family ancestor, Li Kanglan, had been broken into countless pieces. There was no trace of light on the jade tablet. This could not be more obvious. The Li family ancestor had fallen. For the Li family to be able to stand tall in the cultivation world, Li Kanglan was of the utmost importance. If they didn't have the support of a core formation cultivator, the entire Lingnan city would not have been able to survive. Without the deterrence of a powerful cultivator, who would listen to them, it could be imagined how important this was. Our Li family is now in the most dangerous situation. Whether or not we can survive will depend on you all. The news of the old ancestor's death must not be leaked. Li Jiqiang calmed himself down. His eyes shone as he said, "Therefore, I have decided that in the next 3 years, the elders of the family will take turns to enter seclusion. If anyone shows signs of breaking through to the core formation stage, the family will use all of our resources to nurture them. We must have another core formation cultivator appear in the family in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, our Li family and the entire Lingnan city will be completely annihilated." To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 134. A strong cultivator was the most important factor in a clan's prosperity. The reason why Lingnan City could exist was because the Li clan had a core formation stage ancestor. Anyone who wanted to cause trouble in the city had to consider the consequences of angering a core formation stage cultivator. In addition, this wasn't the real immortal cultivation realm. It was just at the edge of the immortal cultivation realm. Most of the people here were rogue cultivators. Some small clans wouldn't dare to provoke a powerful clan like the Li clan. But now was different. If news of Li Tsonglan's death were to spread, many clans who wanted to use the Li clan as a stepping stone would be more than happy to destroy the Li clan or chase them out of Lingnan City. Under these circumstances, it was definitely not the time for a clan to wallow in grief. The only way was to raise another core formation stage cultivator in the shortest amount of time possible and seal off the news of Li Tsonglan's death. Only then would they have enough time to recover. Otherwise, they wouldn't be far from their downfall. Li Jiji was the current head of the clan because of the Li clan's weakness. How could he not understand this? Therefore, regarding Li Tsonglan's death, he only told the most trusted elders in the clan. This way, not only could he seal off the news, but he could also use this matter to stimulate the clan's potential. By stimulating these foundation establishment stage elders, they would be able to move forward courageously and break through the bottleneck of the foundation establishment stage, condense their golden core and enter the core formation stage. This way they would be able to overcome this crisis at this critical juncture. Yes, Patriarch. The elders all responded with a serious expression. They all grew up in the Li clan and were the direct bloodline of the Li clan. They all knew that if the Li clan fell, they wouldn't have a good ending. Everyone, our Li clan has reached its most critical juncture. The death of our ancestor will be the clan's top secret from today onwards. No one is allowed to mention it in front of outsiders. To outsiders, just say that our ancestor is in closed-door cultivation and is preparing to break through to the nascent soul stage. If even a single word about our ancestor's death is leaked out, Li Jiji coldly looked around. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, "Then our Li clan will do everything in our power to kill him and destroy his soul." Yes, Patriarch. We won't reveal anything about this. The people here were all core members of the Li family. They were all elders and had grown up in the Li family. Their loyalty to the Li family was unquestionable. When they heard the news of Li Kanglan's death, they knew that the Li family's most difficult time had arrived. Whether they could survive or not would depend on whether a core formation cultivator could be born in the next few years before the news of their ancestor's death spread. If they could, the Li family would still be able to survive despite the huge losses. It was only a matter of time before he regained his strength. If they couldn't, then the Li family would completely fall from the position of a first-rate family and become a second-rate world, or even a last-rate family. These were all extremely likely things. All right, in the next few years, all of the Li clan's resources will be given to you without limit. As long as we can produce a single core formation cultivator, our Li clan will continue to exist. Li Ji didn't say much. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and motioned for everyone to leave. After the others had left, Li Ji was the only one left in the hall. He sat paralyzed in his seat as he stared blankly at his outstretched right hand. In the palm of his right hand there were many tiny pieces of jade. These pieces of jade were all broken. If they were pieced together, a complete soul tablet could be obtained. This broken soul tablet naturally belonged to none other than Li Kanglan. Now, these broken jade pieces no longer had the slightest bit of light. They were as dim as stones and their spirituality had long been exhausted. Even if it was pieced together, it wouldn't have the slightest effect. Looking at the fragments in his hand, Li Ji's eyes suddenly burst with a dense hatred that couldn't be dissolved. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Southern barbarian demon clan, demonic tiger, it's all because of you that my Li clan suffered such a heavy blow. If my Li clan recovers one day, we will definitely take revenge. We will definitely take revenge. Even if the losses are great, we will completely raze the southern barbarian to the ground, Li Ji shouted with a ferocious expression. It was obvious how much hatred he had in his heart. Even if 3 rivers were poured in, it wouldn't be able to be vented. Chu country's imperial capital. Chu family's manor. The Chu family's patriarch, who was also the Chu country's monarch, Chu Tianxing, was standing opposite a man shrouded in a black fog. Although this man was standing, he could respectfully bow in front of Chu Tianxing to show his respect. Black prison, you're saying that the old fart of the Li clan, Li Kanglan, has already fallen in the southern barbarian? I remember that old fart Li Kanglan has been in seclusion ever since he reached the core formation stage. He wouldn't come out unless something major happened. To think that he would fall in the southern barbarian. Chu Tianxing exuded a dignified aura. Although it was just a normal question, the pressure in his words was naturally revealed. Black Prison spoke respectfully with an indescribable hoarseness in his voice. This hoarseness was quite strange, making it impossible for others to detect the slightest bit of emotion in his words. It was as if he was a piece of cold iron without any emotions. Hearing this, a chill unconsciously spread from the bottom of one's heart. Patriarch, ever since you told us to pay attention to the southern barbarian, I personally went there to observe the strength of the demon clans in the southern barbarian. I wanted to use it in the future. However, before I entered the southern barbarian, I unexpectedly saw Li Kanglan rush into the southern barbarian on his floating cloud boat. He never came out again. Black Prison's hoarse voice was very stiff, but he still continued. At that time, there were continuous thunder in the southern barbarian. If I'm not mistaken, there should be a demon beast undergoing the demon tribulation in the transformation stage. I didn't dare to approach easily and could only watch from afar. However, I saw that the demon beast kings in the southern barbarian really had strength that far surpassed that of a demon beast. Even if they fought against a core formation cultivator, they would be evenly matched in a short period of time. Now, there is probably a demon beast in the southern barbarian who has condensed an inner core. I sincerely request that the southern barbarian be resolved as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will definitely become difficult to deal with in the future. When Black Prison said the last sentence, his eyes burst with cold, killing intent. There was a ruthless look in his eyes. No! Unexpectedly, Chu Tianxing shook his head and denied. Right now, all the resources in the clan are placed in the heavenly demon secret realm in less than 3 years. Even if the southern barbarian's strength increases greatly, its importance is absolutely not comparable to the operation in 3 years. In these 3 years, the entire Chu clan must put the trip to the secret realm first. Everything else can be temporarily put aside. There was an unquestionable firmness in his voice. It was a tone that absolutely could not be changed. Yes. When Black Prison heard this, he answered without a trace of hesitation. Chu Tianxing looked at Black Prison and nodded. Black Prison, in these 3 years, seized the time to train the Black Prison guards. Legend has it that in the heavenly demon secret realm, there is a supreme treasure called the 10,000 Celestial Pagoda. This pagoda contains the secrets of the heavens and earth. As long as you obtain it, you can become one of the most powerful forces in the world. No matter whether it is true or not, this pagoda must be in our hands. Even if we can't obtain it, we must not let others obtain it. This rumor had actually been circulating in the Zijin continent for a long time. It was said that this pagoda was the true treasure of the hidden territory. If one obtained it, they would be able to break through to a realm that no one could match. Thousands of years ago, there was a small cultivator who was only at the foundation establishment stage. By chance, he entered the pagoda. When he came out, his cultivation base had broken through to the nascent soul stage. After that, within 1,000 years, he broke through several barriers and passed the tribulation to become an immortal. This matter was widely circulated in the continent and could not be more true. Therefore, as long as the heavenly demon's secret realm opened again, it would stir up a boundless storm and thousands of huge waves. Countless cultivators would rush into the secret realm, hoping that they would be the next lucky person. Unfortunately, in the years that followed, no one else had such a fortuitous encounter. Even so, the people who rushed to the pagoda were still as numerous as carps crossing the river. There were many of them. Yes, the Black Prison guards have basically been trained. As long as the master gives the order, even if it is a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, the Black Prison guards will rush forward without hesitation. Moreover, the Black Prison absolute formation has been practiced to the later stages. As long as one is enveloped by the absolute formation, even a nascent soul-old monster will die in the formation. The murderous intent in Black Prison's eyes was awe-inspiring. The meaning in his words was enough to freeze one's heart and make one completely dumbfounded. To be able to kill a nascent soul-old monster, such a formation must be extremely terrifying. That's good. You may leave. Yes. Black Prison answered. The black fog fluctuated and he disappeared silently from the hall. The scene was as if he had never appeared. It was simply terrifying to the extreme. On the waterfall of the myriad demon valley, there was a huge reef. On the rock, a huge black tiger stood on it. From his body, traces of black demon chi were constantly emitted from the pores of his body. Outside his body, they condensed and did not disperse, forming a black demon fog that completely covered his entire body. The demon fog fluttered with the wind, and Di Shirtian's figure was faintly discernible in it. It was very strange. Huff! A dull sound was heard in front of him along with his breathing. His inhalation and exhalation had a strange rhythm. He raised his head to the sky, facing the moon, and exhaled again and again. In the sky above his head, strands of silver-white light emerged continuously and quickly rushed to Di Shirtian's position. This was the essence of the sun and moon. However, the essence of the sun and moon this time was different from the previous absorption. It was like a small speck of light, but it turned into strands of silver-white light and fell down. Imagine, to condense this light, who knows how many particles were needed to fuse and condense together. This kind of efficiency was many times faster than in the past. The silver-white light surged to his side and poured into his body through the open pores. The mystic moon refining technique is indeed worthy of being the secret technique of the Fox clan. It can actually allow me to absorb the essence of the sun and moon. The speed and the quantity are 10 times or even 100 times faster than before. It's really amazing. Di Shirtian absorbed the mystic Yin force falling from the moon. He was secretly amazed in his heart. The secret technique of the Fox clan was really amazing. It could increase the speed of absorbing the essence of the sun and moon by 100 times. If it was used in cultivation, it would definitely increase the speed of one's cultivation by 10 times or even 100 times. Others needed 100 years to transform, but those who practiced the mystic moon refining technique only needed a year or 10 years. The difference was huge. It could be seen that this technique was very important. It was definitely not a small matter or a small difference. As he thought about it, his body did not stop. Under the control of his mind, the absorbed mysterious Yin energy did not fuse into his meridians. Instead, it went through 9 cycles in his body and turned into a mysterious energy. Then, it quickly fused into his flesh and blood. This merging was very mysterious. It seemed to be connecting with every inch of his muscles. Moreover, the silver-white mystic Yin force did not completely merge with his flesh and blood. Instead, it condensed and formed silver-white meridians. It connected to every part of his body. The mystic moon refining technique must first shape the meridians, condense the meridians, connect the meridians to the whole body, and transform the body. This sentence was the opening sentence of the mystic moon refining technique. It could be said that it ran through the whole text and contained the supreme true meaning of the mystic moon refining technique. If he did not hear it with his own ears and know the secret, Di Shirtian would never believe that there was such a magical secret technique in this world. He could not help but admire the wisdom of the ancient demon clan. Using the mystic Yin force to shape the 8 extraordinary meridians in the body and reconstruct the meridians, which are no different from the meridians in the human body. Then, with these meridians, the whole body's flesh and blood can be turned into a human. This kind of secret technique is really shocking. By who taught me this secret technique so easily? I owe her a big favor. Sakra smiled bitterly in his heart. However, when there were too many lice, there was no oxygen. Anyway, in the past, the soul-amassing pill, the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, in addition to the debt of saving his life last time, and this time, the mysterious secret technique was given to him. If he really wanted to calculate, the relationship between him and the white fox was simply omnipresent. As for the debt of gratitude, it would be very difficult to calculate clearly. Although he gave her a promise was a promise. A favor could not be fully repaid. The mystic moon refining technique molded the meridians in the human body in the demon clan's body. One could imagine how precious such a secret technique was. I owe her a big favor, De Chertion muttered to himself. Without saying anything more, he raised his head and looked at the moon. He inhaled and exhaled. Like swallows returning to their nests, the silver-white threads flowed into his body endlessly. After entering his body, they followed the secret technique and molded the meridians one by one. First, he molded the 12 standard meridians. On the first day, he molded the gallbladder meridian, liver meridian, and lung meridian. The next day, the large intestine meridian, stomach meridian, and spleen meridian were formed. On the third day, the heart meridian, small intestine meridian, and bladder meridian were formed. Every day, new meridians would be formed. At the same time, De Chertion could faintly feel that his control over the demonic chi was also becoming more proficient in this process. Every day, he would have extraordinary gains. Unknowingly, his understanding of himself also increased. Time passed day by day. After sculpting the 12 standard meridians, it was time to sculpt the 8 extraordinary meridians. As time passed, numerous silver-white meridians began to spread throughout his body, connecting together. His chi and blood also began to circulate according to these meridians. The blood and flesh all over his body became abnormally excited, as if some kind of mysterious change was about to occur at any time. Du meridian, Ren meridian, Chong meridian, Dai meridian, Inwei meridian, Yangwei meridian, and Inxiao meridian. His meridians were being perfected. On the 9th day, the last Yang heel meridian was successfully formed. Boom, boom, boom! At the moment when all the meridians were successfully molded, the inside of Sakra's body was like the creation of heaven and earth in the chaos. Rumbling sounds were unceasing. All the meridians were connected into one in an instant, forming a complete meridian circulation. It ran through his entire body. His chi and blood were vibrating violently and rolling continuously. At this moment, the demonic chi in the demon abode naturally rushed out and directly rushed into the newly formed meridians. However, it was extremely difficult for the demonic chi to move through the newly formed meridians. Every step forward seemed to be breaking through the blocked parts of the meridians. It's the 9th day. De Chertion should be at the final step of transforming his body. In the valley, Bai Hu had unknowingly left the cave abode. She did not continue to cultivate in seclusion. Instead, she stared unblinkingly in the direction of the waterfall. A faint smile appeared in her eyes as she said, "However, it's not that easy to truly transform. To form new meridians, you have to break through the meridians again and completely integrate the meridians with your body. Moreover, you have to break through all the meridians in one go. Otherwise, you won't be able to achieve perfection. During this process, there must not be any pause. You have to break through all the meridians in one go and finally integrate them with your body and connect them together. When you can circulate your chi and blood, you have truly cultivated this secret technique to perfection. Otherwise, it will be a failure. You won't be able to truly transform. Moreover, the process of breaking through the meridians was a rather painful one. You have to break through all the barriers and pierce through your body. Demon refining cauldron, turn for me! De Chertion's heart emitted an aura of solitude. His mind drove the demon refining cauldron, and it began to spin wildly. Waves of pure demonic chi were constantly spewing out from the cauldron as it spun. At the same time, the cauldron was constantly absorbing large amounts of essence from the countless bodies in the cauldron, refined into demonic chi and used it as a shield in the cauldron. Wave after wave of demonic chi surged into the meridians, turning into roaring beasts that rushed towards the barriers in each meridian. In the beginning, it was like a hot knife through butter. Every time it broke through a barrier, the two meridians would be completely connected and perfectly fused together. Of course, when it broke through the meridians, the terrible pain of opening up the meridians also emerged in waves. This caused Di Shirtian's body to constantly tremble. Breaking through the meridians must be done in one go. I can't back down halfway. Go for me. I don't believe that I can't break through with such a large amount of demonic chi. Ah! The demonic chi flowed endlessly and roared continuously. The barriers in front of it were all broken through in an instant like clay chickens and pottery dogs. 1, 2, 3 in a few breaths. He broke through 2/3 of the meridians in one go with the help of the massive amount of demonic chi. However, no matter how ferocious the demonic chi was, every time it broke through the meridians, the ferocious demonic chi would be worn down a little. In the process, the demonic chi was also rapidly consumed. When it reached 2/3, there was less than 1/3 left. Bang! 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 When it began to break through the barriers in front of it again, that barrier was like a dam in front of a reservoir, stubbornly blocking the front. Time and time again, the barrier was on the verge of collapse, but it couldn't be completely broken through. It was blocked outside. No, I can't give up. Refining form and breaking through the meridians. Mystic Moon, help me! Sakra fiercely opened his eyes, and the 108,000 pores on his body instantly emitted a tyrannical devouring power, swallowing the demonic mist outside his body into his body, and quickly transforming it into demonic primordial energy, rushing into his meridians and merging with the previous demonic primordial energy. In an instant, the demonic chi grew stronger and roared as it rushed towards the barrier. With a rumble, his meridians trembled violently. He broke through, but, when he tried to break through the next barrier, he felt powerless again. Boom, boom, boom! However, at this moment, Di Shirtian operated the Mystic Moon refining technique to the extreme. His body was like a magnet, madly sucking in the moonlight. The void shook violently. With a swoosh, a silver-white light pillar instantly fell from the moon, covering Di Shirtian and the reef beneath him in an instant. The silver-white light pillar stood between heaven and earth, connecting everything to the heavens. In the light pillar, countless streaks of mystic Yin essence poured into Di Shirtian's body like a fountain. The mystic Yin energy rushed into his body and into his meridians, intertwining with the original demonic chi in one fell swoop, violently attacking the remaining meridians. Bang, bang, bang! This time, the massive amount of essence that had descended from the heavens combined with the demonic chi was incredibly powerful. His breakthrough was like a hot knife through butter. One by one, the barriers collapsed. In the blink of an eye, all of the meridians in his body had been completely connected, and were now truly connected as one. Ah! And just as it penetrated all the meridians in his body, a surge of turbulent power suddenly emerged from all over his body. In an instant, every inch of his flesh and blood was undergoing an incredible reversal. The pitch-black demonic chi, like smoke, rolled out and rushed into the sky. Who is this? To be able to attract such a huge amount of essence from the sun and the moon, who is going to transform? But there is no transformation demonic tribulation. What is this? In the 100 Flowers Valley, the girl looked at the myriad demon valley in shock. A towering pillar stood between heaven and earth, and she could clearly feel the enormous mystic Yin energy contained in it. Even she could not attract such a huge amount of mystic Yin energy. 2 in 1, a 6,000-word chapter. To be continued. If you want to know the rest, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 135. Sister, that's the location of Brother D's myriad demon valley. Zhu Niao also looked at the heavenly pillar, her eyes full of confusion. But how did Brother D attract such a large amount of moonlight essence? Could it be that Brother D is about to transform? That's impossible. There are no shortcuts to cultivation. It's the same for humans. If they don't have good spiritual roots and extraordinary talent, it's difficult for them to achieve anything in their lifetime. But it's even more so for us demons. Often, we'll cultivate for decades or even centuries, but we can't compare to humans who cultivate for 10 or 8 years. Last time, you said that D. Shirtian's cultivation is only at the initial stage of a demon. He has just opened up his demon palace, and his strength is comparable to a demon king. But no matter how strong he is, if he doesn't reach the peak, he won't be able to attract the demonic tribulation and transform. The girl muttered to herself as she looked at the myriad demon valley. She shook her head slightly. With her current cultivation, she knew very well that there were no shortcuts on the path of cultivation. If there were shortcuts, and they weren't cultivated step by step, sooner or later, they would be deeply harmed. Those who could succeed in one step were not demons, but devils. The path of devils cultivated very quickly. That was because they walked the unconventional path. In order to increase their strength, they didn't care about the consequences. It was said that there were some secret techniques of the path of devils that could use a core formation stage golden core to create a living core formation stage cultivator. Moreover, they would have the strength of a core formation stage cultivator and be able to use it. That was why the path of devils had the word devil in it. It was because they could reap without sowing and steal the cultivation results of others. They could improve by leaps and bounds. Their cultivation speed was something that immortal cultivators and demon cultivators couldn't compare to. Therefore, the techniques of the path of devils had always been known for their strangeness. However, although the path of devils cultivated quickly, it also brought about corresponding hidden dangers. Often, when they cultivated to a certain stage, the hidden dangers would erupt, causing them to go berserk and lose their minds. Thousands of demons would devour their hearts, and they would die miserably. These were not few in number. It could be seen that in this world, in cultivation, there were absolutely no shortcuts that could be taken. For example, D. Shirtian had obtained the corpses of thousands of cultivators. If he had the power contained within those corpses, he would definitely have been able to reach the peak of the demon beast level in one fell swoop. He would have been able to form an inner core and become a demon beast. However, he would not be able to do so in one fell swoop. He would need time to slowly refine the corpses. Step by step, he would need to extract their quintessence energy and personally transform it into his own demonkey. It would also take a lot of time. Therefore, the power obtained this way was a cultivation base that truly belonged to him. There were absolutely no hidden dangers. What he relied on was his own heavenly demon palace, which allowed him to have such a miraculous ability. Amazing speed. Otherwise, they could only use the method of devouring flesh and blood to refine it like other demon beasts. This was the true wonder of a heaven-grade demon abode, the unique ability to look down on other demon abodes. Zhu, go to the Myriad Demon Valley now, and ask your big brother D to come to the 100 Flowers Valley. Big sister wishes to meet him personally. The young woman pondered for a moment before raising her head to look at the vermilion bird and speaking softly. Big sister, Zhu will go now. Hearing this, the vermilion bird's eyes lit up. Flapping her wings, she left behind a red streamer and quickly left the valley. This Zhu. Seeing this, the young woman could not help but chuckle a few times. She raised her head again and looked at the pillar of light. This is. Something seems to have happened in the Myriad Demon Valley. The heavenly pillar that fell from the moon was clearly visible throughout the southern barbarian land. Naturally, it alarmed all the experts in the southern barbarian lands. On a mountain peak, Medusa stood quietly against the wind and looked at the pillar of light. Well, it just so happens that I have something to look for D. Shirtion. My injuries are more or less healed, so it's time to go. Medusa muttered to herself. With a turn of her body, a demonic wind rose from the ground and carried her quickly to the myriad demon valley. At the same time, all the demon kings in other places were looking at the amazing heavenly pillar in amazement. They were secretly guessing what had happened. At this time, in the heavenly pillar, D. Shirtion, who was wrapped in countless mysterious force, had undergone an incredible change. The mysterious moon was refined, and the meridians were reconstructed. The meridians were connected with the flesh and blood of the whole body. The flesh and blood were constantly vibrating and squirming, and a strong black light burst out from the whole body. In this black light D. Shirtion roared. The huge tiger body directly stood up, and the hair on the whole body disappeared. The two tiger legs reversed inch by inch, and the claws turned into feet. The tiger legs also transformed into human thighs. After this change, it began to move upward. The legs, the body, the hands, and finally the head, all of them were rapidly changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When his entire demon body had completely transformed into a human form, Indra looked up to the sky and roared. The dense demon fog that originally shrouded his entire body instantly converged. In the midst of the roar, that heavenly pillar that had fallen from the moon also collapsed on the spot. The enormous mysterious power also collapsed and scattered in all directions, and didn't continue to surge into his body. Although it is not a real transformation, D. Shirtion will not let that day come for too long. D. Shirtion's whole body burst out with a kind of aura. His eyes were shining like sharp arrows, piercing through people's souls. There was a kind of arrogance in his voice. Because he had just transformed, his whole body was naked, and there was not a single piece of clothing covering his body. However, one could clearly see his muscular body. He was 185 meters tall, and on his lower abdomen, there were perfect abdominal muscles, layer upon layer. His chest was as strong as steel, and on his arms, there were inch by inch like dragons coiling around each other. His face was as sharp as a knife, and his eyebrows were slightly raised. A fierce aura suddenly surged out of his body, and in his eyes, there was a trace of coldness and arrogance. His pitch-black hair casually draped down, fluttering behind his head. On his forehead there was a purple mark. If one looked closely, they would see that this mark was actually the purple king mark on his forehead when he was in his monster body. However, the king rune that appeared on his forehead was much smaller. Moreover, it also formed a mysterious king rune. It wasn't the original king character, but a king rune imprint formed by a mysterious rune. It seemed to be divine writing, but also seemed to be ancient demon writing. Exuding a strong majesty, the king mark was constantly pulsating, and a tyrannical pressure suddenly spurted out, surging out in all directions. In an instant, the entire myriad demon valley was covered under the pressure. King! At this moment, all the creatures in the valley knelt down at the same time. In the face of this pressure, they instinctively did not have the slightest intention to resist. He wantonly released his chi and looked up at the sky. His eyes were deep, as if he was thinking about something. However, in the blink of an eye, he came back to his senses. He took out his bag of holding and gently touched it. There was a flash of light and a black robe appeared in his hand. With a shake of his body, he quickly put on the black robe. It covered his naked body. His strong body was shrouded in the black robe, and the black robe fluttered in the wind, which set off his strong arrogance. Today, I, D. Shirtion, once again have the appearance of a human. However, the past is long gone. I was a human in my previous life, but in this life, I am already a demon. This world is a world full of immortals, demons, ghosts, and gods. In my previous life, I could look down on Shanghai, but in this life, I still want to ask, who is the master of the Kangmang continent? Di Shirtion looked up at the void, and his words could be said to be sonorous and powerful. It was the first time he had spoken his heart with a human body. The last 8 words surged in his heart, and a supreme aura surged in his heart. Although this aura was not strong now, it represented his unique temperament. Not bad, you indeed have excellent talent. You should know that the mystic moon shape refining technique, even in my Fox clan, requires the care and guidance of an expert by the side to reach perfection. But you can actually cultivate it to perfection on your own. You even drew down the moon pillar, and with the help of the essence of the moon, broke through all the meridians in your body in one fell swoop and took form. I can't help but admire you. At this time, Baihu had also unknowingly appeared on the peak of the waterfall, and her eyes contained a deep smile. She sized up Di Shirtion's appearance after taking form. He thought to himself, this Sakura, although his appearance after transformation is not that of those extraordinarily handsome cultivators among the immortal cultivators, he has a unique temperament and is very powerful. Coupled with the aloofness in his eyes, he is indeed very good. His face is clear and his heart is clear. It seems that he must have a lot of stories. Indeed, Di Shirtion's appearance could not be considered handsome, and compared to Zhong Yunfei's devilishly handsome appearance, there was even less of a comparison. However, coupled with his unique temperament, there was a unique charm that was very interesting. Miss Baihu. Di Shirtion turned to look at Baihu. Wait. Baihu shook her head and interrupted. Who said my name is Baihu? I like you, so I'll tell you. Next time, don't call me by the wrong name. My name is Su Tianxiang. Because of my identity in the cultivation world, I am called the Heavenly Fragrance Fox Monarch. Her name came from her unique fragrance. Outsiders called her the Heavenly Fragrance Fox Monarch, but they did not know that her real name was Tianxiang. After saying that, Baihu's body flashed with white light, and the original Baihu suddenly disappeared, and a peerless beauty stood in place. She was dressed in a snow-white palace dress that perfectly accentuated her figure. Her pitch-black hair was tied up by a jade hairpin and draped over her shoulders. Her entire body was curvaceous from top to bottom, as if she was a masterpiece of the heavens. All the beautiful things in the world were completely entrusted to one person. Between her 2 arms, there was a ribbon woven from an unknown material that danced in the wind. Waves of exotic fragrance wafted from her body, and people couldn't help but be immersed in it. It really is you. After seeing Baihu's appearance, Di Shirtion finally let go of all the doubts in his heart. This was the beautiful face that he had seen twice. Since you're here, why hide? Baihu smiled faintly, then suddenly looked to the side and said something inexplicable. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 136. What? Who's there? Di Shirtion raised his eyebrows and a cold expression appeared in his eyes. He followed Baihu's gaze and looked to the left. Emitting a cold light, he said coldly, "Come out." As he spoke, he swiped his storage bag with his right hand and a green wooden ruler quickly flew out and landed in his hand. Before he finished speaking, the green ruler had already been thrown to the left. It emitted a strong green light and smashed into the void. Bang! That green ruler was the spoils of war he obtained from a fierce battle with 2 Foundation establishment cultivators of the Li family at Tiger Hill. It was a rather decent Dharma artifact. When he held it in his hand, the demonic aura in his body instantly poured into the green ruler. The huge amount of demonic aura pushed the power of the green ruler to the limit in one fell swoop. It smashed down heavily. However, a strand of black hair suddenly appeared in the void. The hair became long and slender, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a crimson-red snake. Like a spirit snake coming out of its hole, it coiled around the green ruler, uncoiled it, and shook it. In just 3 moves, the demonic aura contained in the green ruler was completely removed. Then, a snow-white jade hand stretched out and the green ruler gently landed in her hand, as if it was automatically delivered. At the same time, the appearance of the newcomer was completely revealed. "It's you, Queen Medusa." De Chertion couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise when he saw the newcomer. However, when he recalled that Medusa had said that she would come back to find him after the battle with Li Kanglin, he was somewhat relieved. After all, the commotion he made earlier was too big. There were probably few demonic beasts in the southern barbarian lands who didn't know about the sky-piercing divine pillar. "Well, I didn't expect you to have transformed. However, why is there no inner core in your body? I feel that your cultivation doesn't seem to have improved either." In fact, Medusa had only just arrived when the white fox had transformed into a human. However, even so, her heart was still in turmoil. First of all, De Chertion didn't have the strength he should have after taking human form. He also didn't condense an inner core in his body. This was strange enough. Also, what surprised her the most was Bai Hu. When Bai Hu said the words "heavenly fragrant fox monarch," her identity was immediately exposed. Although the southern barbarian was a small place, there were several demon kings in the demon clan. The heavenly fragrance fox monarch was one of the more famous ones. Her strength was already comparable to a nascent soul stage powerhouse. How could they not be surprised that such a powerful being would appear here all of a sudden? Medusa greets the Fox King. Following that, she also greeted the white fox with a hint of respect. However, she was cold by nature and did not show much of a reaction. After all, she was now a demon king who had condensed an inner core and stepped into the forest of demon clan powerhouses. Bai Hu's mouth pulled a beautiful arc and said with a smile, "So it's Sister Medusa. We are both from the demon clan. There's no need to be so polite. You and I can call each other sisters in the future. Just call me Tianxiang." She didn't feel the slightest murderous intent from Medusa. Obviously, the other party was not an enemy. She, who knew the situation of the demon clan, naturally understood that every new demon clan member who took human form was a great increase in overall strength. When Medusa heard this, a smile appeared on her cold face. She bowed again and said, "Sister greets Sister Tianxiang." "Good." Bai Hu smiled and took Medusa's hand, appearing very close. Medusa also threw the green ruler back to De Chertion. Wait for Zhuer. Zhuer also wants to be a sister." At this moment, a scarlet ray of light rapidly flew over from afar. A crisp voice sounded. Looking over, it was the vermilion bird. "Zhuer, why are you here?" Medusa asked curiously when she saw Zhuer fly to her side. The vermilion bird usually stayed in the 100 Flowers Valley and didn't come out easily. Moreover, she also knew that there was that person in the 100 Flowers Valley. If the vermilion bird came out, it often meant that that person in the valley had something to do. Could it be that the heavenly moon pillar that De Chertion brought over just now attracted her attention? She thought to herself. However, the vermilion bird's next words immediately dispelled her doubts. The vermilion bird flapped her wings and said, "Sister asked me to come." The vermilion bird flew in front of Bai Hu and blinked. "Can Zhuer call you Sister Tianxiang too?" "Of course." Bai Hu smiled. She reached out and let the vermilion bird land in her palm. "That's great. Zhuer has another sister now." Zhuer jumped for joy. "If anything happens in the future, I'll have another sister to help me out. I'm so happy." Sweat, so this was the reason why the vermilion bird recognized her as a sister. Medusa and Bai Hu couldn't help but shake their heads. De Chertion also shook his head. Seeing that many people had come, it seemed that they all had something to do. Therefore, he didn't want to continue chatting outside. He brought Bai Hu and the others back to the cave abode. Now that he was in human form, he couldn't lie on the ground like before. After entering the cave abode, he frowned slightly. With a thought, he took out a large pile of jade stones from his storage pouch. There were many of such jade stones in the pouch. They were all obtained from the cultivators. After taking them out, he used his monster vitality to quickly melt these jade stones together and shape them into a round jade table. Then, he made a few jade stools and placed them in the cave. He also took out a jade gourd and 4 wine cups and placed them on the jade table. "Please." Tirtian sat on the main seat and greeted Bai Hu and the others. Then they all sat down. The little vermilion bird also stood on the jade table and stared at the jade gourd on the table without blinking. Without saying anything, Tirtian opened the jade gourd and poured the wine into the cup. Suddenly, a stream of golden liquid fell from the gourd into the cup. The golden liquid was like amber and was extremely sticky. Traces of mellow wine fragrance slowly spread out from the cup. After filling the cups, the 4 cups of golden liquid were placed on the table. "This wine is..." Medusa smelled this wine fragrance that she had never smelled before. A strange look flashed across her face. From this wine, she felt a kind of condensed mysterious spiritual energy that didn't disperse. Obviously, this was a kind of spiritual wine that could increase one's cultivation. "This cup is the monkey wine that one of my subordinates brewed a long time ago. It has been brewed for 100 years. Everyone can try it." Tirtian held up a cup of wine and pointed at it from afar. This wine was not an ordinary monkey wine. It was a real 100-year-old monkey wine that was collected. The taste of the wine and the unique spiritual energy contained in the wine were 10 times or even 100 times more than ordinary monkey wine. It was extremely precious. Even Tirtian only had 3 gourds. He had always been reluctant to drink it. Now, he made an exception and took out a gourd. "This is really good wine." Bai Hu took a small sip. She closed her eyes and carefully tasted the different flavors in the wine. She couldn't help but nod her head and praise. This 100-year-old monkey wine was more delicious than ordinary monkey wine. It was really a rare product. Hearing this, the vermilion bird hurriedly stuck her head into the wine cup and drank the wine in one gulp. Her eyes clearly lit up as she said, "It's really good. It's as good as the 100 Flowers immortal wine that my sister brewed. Although this wine is good, it's a pity that there's not much of it," Tirtian said calmly. He looked at Medusa and asked, "Medusa, last time you said that you would come to me. Now you're here. It should be because of the previous matter." After hearing her words, Tirtian knew that Medusa would definitely come to the Myriad Demon Valley. He had already guessed it in his heart. After all, there were not many things that could attract her attention. After a little elimination, he could roughly guess it. Sure enough, Medusa did not hide anything. Her eyes stared straight at Tirtian. She gently opened her red lips and said straightforwardly, "On that day, I saw you take out that jade instrument. If I'm not mistaken, that should be your natal demon weapon." "That's right." Sakra didn't deny this. Bai Hu, on the other hand, was interested in slowly tasting the wine in the cup while listening to the conversation between the two. She did not interrupt. "I want to ask you to teach me the refining method of the natal demon weapon." In a word, she went straight to the point. What she wanted was the refining method of the demon weapon. After all, she had now condensed her Niden and was a real demon. She could start to refine her own demon weapon. At that time, with the demon weapon, her strength would become more powerful. In addition, Tirtian's previous eye-catching actions with the 7 Sins demonic zither made Medusa realize that a good magic weapon definitely had extraordinary power. Tirtian heard it, but he just pondered and did not immediately agree. "As a reward, this is a treasure that I accidentally obtained before. I'll give it to you as an exchange." Medusa's wrist turned, and a pitch-black bead appeared in her hand. On this bead, black light flowed like flowing water. It looked very strange. However, the most peculiar thing was that there was a strange power flowing on this bead. It was as if there was a pool of black water in the bead. Around the bead, specks of silvery white light slowly gathered around it. It seemed to be absorbing the moonlight. I accidentally obtained this bead. All these years, I only know that if you put this bead on your body, it can increase the speed of absorbing the essence of the sun and moon by about 3 times. It's a very good treasure to assist in cultivation. Medusa gently placed the bead on the jade table, and then looked at de Chertion without blinking. Good. This is the refining ancient book of the natal demon weapon. De Chertion's eyes flashed. He looked at the bead, took out the refining ancient book, and placed it on the jade table. It was not very difficult for him to get the refining ancient book. It was just a spoil of war obtained from the cultivators. It was just that this kind of ancient book was relatively rare. The things inside had long been memorized in his mind, and he used it to exchange for a bead. It was not a loss. In fact, it was a big advantage. The exchange between the two was very direct. One took the bead and the other took the ancient book. The exchange between them was completed. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 137. Taking the black bead, de Chertion fiddled with it for a while, and then channeled a strand of demonic aura into the black bead. The result of this action made him exclaim in surprise. His originally indifferent attitude suddenly changed, and he stared at the black bead in his hand, carefully sizing it up. He thought to himself, this black bead doesn't seem simple. There's definitely something strange about it. It can actually devour my demonic aura. It's definitely not an ordinary treasure. When he channeled his demonic aura into the black bead, he felt that the demonic aura was like a stone falling into the sea. It disappeared without a trace. It didn't even float on the water. Moreover, the black bead didn't change at all after devouring a strand of demonic aura. It was still the same as before. Although it was shining and seemed very mysterious, it was still the same as before. Medusa casually flipped open the ancient book on refining weapons. She wasn't interested in the refining of the weapons at the beginning, so she quickly flipped to the section on the refining of the natal celestial weapon. After a brief glance, she knew that this ancient book was indeed authentic. The refining method of the natal celestial weapon was even more authentic. After all, the 9 heavens 9 extremes origin formation was real, and this formation was the key to the natal celestial weapon. After a quick glance, she closed it and put it away. She saw de Chertion looking at the black bead with a surprised expression. He said indifferently, I've had this black bead for hundreds of years. It can devour demonic aura and the essence of the moon. It should be a very mysterious treasure. It's just that I've carried it with me for hundreds of years, and I haven't been able to find out what's so special about it. There won't be any results if I keep it in my hands. Its ability to gather the essence of the moon is no longer of much help to me. It can still be of great help to you. Medusa's eyes swept across the black bead. She had carried it with her for hundreds of years, so how could she not know that? However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't find out what's so special about it. Therefore, she took it out to exchange for the refining of the natal celestial weapon at this time. De Chertion nodded and carefully took out a jade box. He placed the black bead into the box and stored it in his bag of holding. He instinctively had a premonition that this black bead might be an incredible treasure. After putting it away, he looked at Medusa and said, although the refining of a natal demon weapon is not complicated, it requires a lot of heavenly treasures and spiritual stones to set up the blood refining array. It is not easy to refine a natal demon weapon that belongs to you. There was a hint of warning in his words. During this process, Di Shirtian knew very well that the first thing he needed to do was to consume a huge amount of spirit stones. It would be difficult to gather spirit stones. However, the spirit stones were not the most troublesome part. The real difficulty was how to collect those rare materials. Without good materials, it would be difficult to refine a satisfactory natal demon weapon. For example, the Seven Sins demonic zither was a rare treasure. The peerless jade embryo and the dragon tendon of a flood dragon could be refined into a rare magic weapon. However, they were condensed into a celestial weapon at the same time. It could be imagined how precious it was. Therefore, a natal demon weapon could be refined by anyone. It might not be able to refine a powerful demonic weapon, but it required those rare treasures that could only be found by chance. "You don't need to remind me of this," Medusa said coldly. Her expression revealed a trace of certainty. In truth, in these past few years, she had already consciously collected some precious materials, especially the 5-colored snake scales that she shed when she transformed. These were excellent materials for refining demonic artifacts. Now that she got the refining method, he was afraid that she would prepare to refine it as soon as she went back. "If you need spirit stones, I have a lot here." Seeing that the two had reached an agreement, Baihu said with a smile. When she smiled, the whole cave seemed to become bright in an instant. A unique and strange charm radiated from her body. Charming but not glamorous, this was the natural charm of the Fox clan. Every time, it would naturally flow out. It exuded a different kind of charm. "There's no need, big sister. Little sister has also collected spirit stones over the years. It should be enough to refine a natal demon artifact." Medusa's lips drew a beautiful arc. At this moment, Zhu Niao finished the 100-year-old wine in front of her in one gulp, savoring the unique taste of the monkey wine. She came back to her senses and blinked. Her originally clear eyes became a little blurred. She said, "Brother Di Zhu. Zhu also has something to tell you." Her voice was a little stuttering. It seemed that she was not strong enough to drink. Standing on the jade table, her body was a little swaying, looking naive and charming. She looked very cute. "Oh." Di Shirtian heard, turned to look at her and said, "If you have something to say, just say it." He had always felt that Zhu Niao was a little mysterious in his heart. What was mysterious was not Zhu Niao herself, but the sister behind her. Several times when Zhu Niao appeared, it was related to her sister or mentioned her. And every time, when the demons in the southern barbarian heard her sister, there was a natural respect in their expressions and tone. All of this showed that the sister behind Zhu Niao was definitely not an ordinary person. However, he had never had the chance to specifically know who her sister was. What did it mean? "Big brother, my big sister wants to see you." Zhu Niao said something that surprised everyone. "Your sister wants to see me?" When Di Shirtian heard this, his face could not help but show a thoughtful look. He secretly thought for a moment, then raised his head to look at Zhu Niao and said, "No, thank you for your sister's kindness, but this time I have something to do. I will arrange it and then I will leave the southern barbarian." Unexpectedly, after thinking about it, he unexpectedly refused this invitation. "What? Brother D, you don't want to see my sister?" Vermilion Bird's originally drunk and dizzy little head immediately sobered up upon hearing Sakra's refusal. She widened her eyes and looked at him with a look of disbelief. "Do you know that in the southern barbarian lands, it's very difficult for many demon clans to see my elder sister? Brother D, if you go to see my sister, maybe you will gain a lot. Zhu, go back and apologize to your sister for me. I do have something to do, and have to leave the southern barbarian as soon as possible." Di Shirtian said in a deep voice, "When I come back next time, I will go personally." After making a decision, he would not be swayed by anything. He still insisted on his own idea. It would be a lie to say that he was not curious about the sister behind Zhu Niao. Di Shurtian really wanted to know what kind of existence she was, but he naturally had his reasons for refusing. First of all, her sister was almost certain that she was a strong person who even Medusa, who had condensed her Niden, had to pay attention to. Moreover, he was not sure whether the other party knew the role he played in the last time when he consciously made a plan to use the whole southern barbarian evil beasts to fight with the cultivators. It was because of his plan. If she knew that he was going this time, it might not be a good thing. Of course, there were many other reasons behind this, so he naturally had to decline this invitation. Di Shurtian said in his heart, although I also want to know who the most mysterious person in the southern barbarian is, now is not the best time to meet her. As long as I enter the secular world, learn the rhythm, and can exert the power of the seven sins demonic zither, even if Zhu Er's sister is mysterious, at least I can have the ability to protect myself. Wait, when I come back, I will definitely uncover your mysterious face. Then I will go back and tell my sister. Zhu Niao looked at Di Shurtian curiously, but she did not continue to ask him to go to the 100 Flowers Valley. Zhu, can you take me to see your sister? At this time, Bai Hu suddenly interrupted with interest. Count me in. It just so happens that I haven't gone to see your sister for many years. Unexpectedly, Medusa also said. They plan to go together. Okay. Sister will be very happy to see Sister Tianxiang, and you go together. Zhu Niao heard. Not only did she not refuse, but she happily agreed. She looked happy. Di Shurtian looked indifferent, picked up the gourd, filled the wine cup on the table, and chatted in the cave while drinking. Among them, Bai Hu was the most experienced, so in the conversation, she often talked about some secrets and legends on the mainland, various events, and even the general situation on the mainland. For example, the human countries near the southern barbarian, the north was Chu, and the west was Zhao. In the east, it was more chaotic. 3 small countries fought all year round, blood flowed like rivers, and many people could not survive. In many places, 9 out of 10 houses were empty. Some had died and some had fled. It was miserable. After drinking a gourd of wine, Zhu Niao wanted to return to the 100 Flowers Valley, and Bai Hu, who was curious, followed, leaving only Di Shurtian in the valley. Brother. Not long after White Fox and the others left, White E's voice suddenly rang out. As it cried out, it quickly ran towards them. There was a deep sense of panic in its voice. Little White. Hearing that, Sakura was startled and hurriedly looked towards the entrance of the cave. He saw that Xiao Bai had already rushed in front of him. Seeing Sakura, who had already turned into a human, he wasn't unfamiliar at all. From his aura, he instantly knew that the person in front of him was his elder brother. She ran over and shouted, "Brother, not good, Sister Zifei is missing." Little White searched many places but couldn't find her. Little White's eyes were filled with tears. What, Miss Zifei is missing? Di Shurtian frowned slightly, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He had always been grateful to Zifei. After all, it was she who sent Little White to him without any hesitation, allowing the siblings to reunite. This favor could not be said to be small. But now, she was missing in the valley. How could he not be moved? To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 138. Well, brother, I just searched a lot of places, but I couldn't find Sister Fei. Could something have happened to her? Xiao Bai looked at Di Shurtian anxiously and said with a sobbing tone. Don't worry. Maybe your sister Zifei just lost her way in the valley. I will ask King Kong to look for her immediately. As long as she is still in the valley, we will definitely find her. Di Shurtian reached out and picked up Xiao Bai. He patted her little head and said, Don't worry. Since Miss Zifei brought you back, I will definitely not leave you alone. Okay. Xiao Bai nodded obediently. Without saying anything more, he quickly walked out of the cave and sent a message to Kong. Kong immediately gathered the entire group of eagles and kept circling above the valley. Thousands of vultures covered the entire sky above the valley. One by one, they opened their sharp eagle eyes and scanned the valley inch by inch. Bai Susu also led the snakes distributed in the valley and quickly searched the ground. The sky and the ground were all covered in the search range. However, the strange thing was that after searching the entire Myriad Demon Valley, they did not find any trace of Zifei. It was as if Zifei had disappeared into thin air in the valley. It should be known that all the exits of the valley were guarded by subordinates. Those guards who were hiding in the dark did not see anyone leave. Her disappearance was very mysterious. It was very strange. Search. Go out of the valley and search the entire southern barbarian land. I don't believe that a living person would disappear inexplicably in the valley. We can't find any trace of her. Di Shirtian's face was cold, and his eyes were extremely sharp. He said coldly. He wondered in his heart, how did Zifei disappear? Although I've been focusing on practicing the mystic moon shaping technique these days, I can still find out what's going on in the valley. I've seen Zifei often these days, so why did she suddenly disappear? He was puzzled. He could not figure it out. Just as Di Shirtian was searching all over the mountain range, at this time, in the west of the Demon's Valley, there was a huge obelisk erected. On this obelisk, there were mysterious ancient seals, exuding an ancient and boundless aura. There was a faint burst of cold air. This was a tombstone. Behind the tombstone was a huge ancient tomb. However, they could only see the general appearance of the ancient tomb. They couldn't get close to it, as it was blocked by the mysterious power emitted by the tombstone. They didn't allow any living beings to approach them. From beginning to end, this area was filled with a mysterious aura. Not a single blade of grass grew in the surroundings, and birds and beasts were extinct. It was an extremely desolate area. Moreover, Di Shirtian had personally declared this place as a forbidden area. None of the living beings in the valley dared to approach this place again. However, there was an exception today. A plainly dressed girl with an average appearance was staring at the ancient tomb in front of her without blinking. She was looking at the tombstone in front of her with curiosity. How strange. Something seems to be calling out to me. If Di Shirtian saw this girl, he would naturally know that she was Zifei, who he was currently searching everywhere for. Kong and the others had investigated other places in the valley, but they did not come here. The strangeness of this place made them subconsciously ignore it. Moreover, this was the forbidden area of the valley, so they would not rush in rashly. That was why he didn't find any traces of Zifei. Otherwise, he would have definitely found something. Pitter-patter! Zifei approached the tombstone step by step. Her crisp footsteps reverberated in the surroundings, which was extremely strange. However, it was very strange. Last time when Di Shirtian approached this tombstone, it immediately erupted with an astonishing cold air, and almost instantly froze him. If it wasn't for the mysterious power of the peerless jade embryo protecting him at that time, he would have been frozen and his life would have been extinguished. What was strange was that when Zifei approached the tombstone did not erupt with that astonishing cold air. It just stood between the heavens and the earth as usual, as if it had existed since ancient times. After walking past the tombstone, the ancient tomb behind it appeared in front of her. An ancient tomb door covered with various patterns was tightly shut. The patterns on the tomb door looked extremely terrifying. The wings of a demon god with wings were broken. The heavens and the earth were collapsing, the sun and the moon were falling, and millions of blood rain whistled down. The vivid and lifelike patterns made people tremble in fear, and their hearts were filled with boundless fear. It seemed to be narrating some secret history that had happened in the past and was buried in the river of time. Kacha! When Zifei arrived in front of the tomb and was about to carefully examine the terrifying patterns on the tomb door, the door of the tomb that had not changed for tens of thousands of years suddenly rose up with a crisp rumble. Ah! The moment the ancient tomb opened, an irresistible suction force suddenly spewed out from the tomb. Almost in the blink of an eye, it enveloped Zifei and pulled her into the tomb. This unforeseen event only made Zifei let out a short cry of surprise. In the blink of an eye, she was pulled into the ancient tomb and disappeared. Bang! The rising tomb door suddenly stopped the moment Zifei entered, and at that moment, it fell back down with a bang. In the blink of an eye, it returned to its original tightly shut appearance, exuding an ancient aura. It quietly echoed between the heavens and the earth. The surroundings once again returned to the deathly silence. The ancient tomb was still the original ancient tomb, and the tombstone was still standing on the ground. It had existed since ancient times. It was impossible to tell that a strange change had occurred here before. 3 days later, Di Shirtian was dressed in a long black robe. His black hair danced in the wind, and he looked particularly proud and aloof. In front of him, Bai Yu, Qihua, Bai Susu, and the others stood in a line respectfully in front of him. Little White was snuggling close to his feet. You all should already know the purpose of calling everyone over this time. Sakura nodded his head and looked around at all the subordinates in front of him in a dignified manner before he opened his mouth and said, "Your Majesty, are you really going to leave?" Bai Susu asked in an urgent voice. Qihua and the others also looked at him with wide eyes. Clearly, this question was very important. Di Shirtian said without hesitation, "That's right. This king has important matters to attend to in the secular world, and it can't be delayed. However, this time I will go, and once I finish my business and get what I want, I will return. 3 to 5 months at the shortest, and no more than 3 years at the longest. I will definitely return." After saying that, he paused and took a deep breath. His eyes shone brightly, and he said in a deep voice, "In this period of time, you will cultivate according to the cultivation method I have given you. If possible, you must become a monster as soon as possible. Remember, this king does not want trash as his subordinate." The last sentence was said with a hint of viciousness. The king mark on his forehead flickered violently. A mountainous and hellish aura pressed down on Qihua and the others. He said coldly, "This king wants experts who can follow me and conquer the world." "Yes, my king." When Qihua and the others heard this, their eyes shone brightly. A strong fighting spirit and pride rose in them. They answered without hesitation. His eyes were filled with a resolute expression, and there was an incomparable thirst for power within them. During this period of time, they had already made rapid progress. With all kinds of medicinal pills and cultivation methods, compared to before, who knew how many times faster they were in their cultivation. Qihua was already preparing to open the 3rd meridian and run through the whole body, preparing to be promoted to the peak of the demon. As for Bai Yu and the others, they were also accumulating strength and preparing to break through the next level. Their progress was fast. If they waited for the monkey wine to be brewed, this speed would be even faster. However, this speed was a little slow compared to Di Shirtian. Yes. Di Shirtian nodded with satisfaction and said, "The demon clan in the southern wilderness will definitely not touch the Myriad Demon Valley for my sake. During this period of time, you all stay in the valley and cultivate in seclusion. Also, Little White will stay in the valley. You must take good care of it. Brother, Little White wants to go with you. Don't leave Little White behind." When Little White heard this, it stretched out its claws and grabbed his clothes. It pulled hard and looked at him pitifully. When Di Shirtian saw this, he could not bear it. However, he did not relent and only comforted it gently. "Little White, I'm going out this time because I have something important to do. Your sister Bai Hu will be recuperating in the valley during this period of time. You can be with her." Remember, she's a strong demon. If you can get her to give you some pointers, you'll definitely gain something. Moreover, it won't be long before Big Brother comes back. Time will pass very quickly in the midst of cultivation. He did not have absolute strength to protect Little White now. He even relied on a secret technique to transform. His cultivation was far from that of a real demon. Moreover, after cultivating, Little White already had a demonic aura. If he brought it to the secular world, it would be like a radar that could be noticed by those immortal cultivators at any time. This was not what he wanted. After comforting her, Little White released her claws with tears in her eyes and said, "Brother, you have to come back quickly. Little White will cultivate seriously." Tion patted her little head gently and turned to leave. He walked unusually decisively. His footsteps were neither fast nor slow. When he stepped on the ground, there were rhythmic sounds. His entire body was shrouded in a layer of arrogance as he walked into the tunnel that led to the outside. In the blink of an eye, his figure was swallowed by the darkness in the cave. "Brother, Little White will definitely work hard. In the future, Little White will also save Mother." Little White watched Yen's figure disappear into the cave and secretly made up her mind. "You're really carefree when you leave. However, I'd like to see how far your cultivation will go when you return in the future. This time, I'll help you guard the Thousand Demon Valley temporarily. I wonder what it would be like to play a complete song with a demonic zither that was refined from a peerless jade embryo." Bai Hu, who had left with the vermilion bird earlier, was standing on the waterfall peak at some point in time. She quietly watched Tion leave in an unusually carefree manner. Her lips curled into a smile as she muttered to herself, "In the new week, I hope that everyone can cast a few votes while reading the book. The 10,000 Demons Tournament has officially begun." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.